Majority Report with Sam Cedar, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day, Thursday, Casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Cedar.
It is Friday, May 22nd, 2020. My name is Sam Cedar. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live, steps and steps and steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. Casual Friday, folks. Back wearing my soft-collared shirt. And I have shaved off at least a portion of my facial hair. So to celebrate on the program today, Brandon Sutton will be joining us. Pretty Bad Lefty on Twitter and host of the Discourse podcast. Following that, Matthew Film Guy will be here. Catch us up on what we should be streaming during this, I don't know, quasi-semi, certainly deteriorating lockdown. Meanwhile, also on the show today, hydroxy linked to increased death in corona patients, according to a new study. Meanwhile, Mike Pompeo ordered his State Department, I should say, to invent an emergency to justify an emergency Saudi arms sales. Treasurer Steve Mnuchin signals we will need more COVID-19 relief money. Biden gaffes his way to an 8-point national lead against Trump. CDC revises surfaces protocols. Georgia shows what happens if you open it up and they don't come. Meanwhile, folks, breathe easy. American billionaires made $434 billion since the start of the lockdown. Phew. QAnoner John Ratcliffe confirmed by the Republicans as the next director of national intelligence. Meanwhile, same Republicans worry about Martha McSally's Senate loss in Arizona. Cory Gardner worries about himself losing in Colorado, and Kelly Loeffler pays tribute, literally, to Donald Trump for support. Lastly, polls show Black and Latino Americans are 3 times as likely to know a person who have died from COVID-19. All this and more on today's program. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Matt and Brendan are on the line with us. Gentlemen, hello. Hope everybody is safe.
Safe and sound.
Safer with you with that mustache here.
All right, there you go. That's why I wore it, just because I knew you guys would be feeling a lot better if I was wearing a mustache today. And so I am. I can't I promise you this is going to stay. But I've got mixed reviews on the home front. My daughter thinks that it makes me look like a murderer. So I don't know why that's the case. But,
that's what my girlfriend's mom thinks about me too, with my mustache. So,
and that sounds like you actually have a strategy behind that.
She likes me besides that.
Oh, she does. And so you just don't want it to get too. You don't want to get too much support.
Exactly.
From mom. Yeah, that's a smart move. Folks, it's Friday. Let me just remind you, this program relies on your support to carry on. Obviously, in the midst of this, a lot of folks have lost their jobs. We've had a significant number of members who have had to convert to complimentary memberships, which we offer here because we don't want to lock anybody out of the membership. If you're one of those folks who are not under financial stress now, or are not anticipating any financial stress, it's a very weird situation we have. And there are some, and certainly more white collar workers and tech workers and media workers can work from home. Although with that said, the Atlantic just cut like 20% of its staff. We see huge cuts in journalism across the board. But there's some sectors where it's just like, I don't have to commute anymore. Of course, you're locked at home with the kids, but from a financial standpoint, it hasn't meant anything. For others, it has been debilitating. If you're one of those folks who are fortunate enough to not have any financial stress on your horizon and you enjoy the show, now would be a great time to become a member. You can do so at jointhemajorityreport.com. Also, now we have merch at shop.majorityreportradio.com. Gotten a lot of great feedback on that. When you become a member, you not only get the extra content just about every day, and on Memorial Day, we're just going to have a member-only show. We're trying to work out what that will be. We're trying to see if we can find some old-timey Majority Report stuff, deep archive stuff to put in there. But you also get the show commercial-free, and that has value as well. Every now and then we put in an ad for members that we are carrying because we want to really promote the product, or we think that the members will like it. We do that. I think we did that with Sunset Lake CBD this week, right? The
Correct.
Best 20% off. We're going to run that ad today, but members can go back and find it. Maybe we'll keep it for members. I don't know. But all right. So let's get down to this. Donald Trump, this is a very weird way of, and I know people who have gone in for tests and they get their results back. And it says, essentially something to the effect of like negative for the test is negative for the presence of COVID-19. Test is negative for the existence of X, Y, or Z. It's not a complicated thing, unless I don't know. Why would you make it complicated? You could be an idiot, or you could be an idiot who is trying to avoid answering a direct question and be a little bit obtuse. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Donald Trump answering the question, what's the results of your most recent COVID test?
And I tested very positively in another sense. So this morning, I tested positively toward negative, right? So, no, I tested perfectly this morning. Meaning I tested negative.
Have you taken the antibody test yet?
But that's the way of saying it. Positively toward the negative.
Have you taken the antibody?
Yeah, I mean, maybe he just didn't, he got confused. And he said, I know I'm positive. No, I mean, negative. I don't know. Do you think it's just dumb? Or is it, is he trying to be obtuse for some reason?
Yeah, that seems like it could be a way of saying I have the antibodies, so I already had it. Maybe if it is a lie, that seems like those words would be his way of covering it.
Interesting. I don't know why they don't just release this as due course. I mean, of course, all of this stuff that they've been doing have been just completely disastrous in terms of saving people. 95,000 people now dead in the United States. They're unclear to me right now, what's happening in terms of growth right around the country. But New York, as a country, it's going. We've certainly plateaued. It's going down in New York, and we may see a big drop off. I mean, who knows? But the virus is still there, and it ain't going anywhere for quite a while, it seems to me. But I guess we'll find out. We have some good video of Donald Trump insisting he was not going to wear a mask, and then, of course, wearing a mask. But let me just get to this. One of our sponsors today, Sunset Lake CBD. They're a mostly employee-owned business. They were a dairy farm producing milk for Ben & Jerry's ice cream. Then they decided to grow hemp. They use no pesticides, 100% pesticide-free. They use only organic fertilizers. Their business practices are stellar. $15 an hour minimum wage. Like I say, the employees own majority of the company. And their product is awesome. I'm using the tincture, I call it, like, right? That's what they call it, the oil. And I take a droplet of it every night before I go to bed now. And I'm sleeping better than I have ever slept before. There's also, I got my Sunday morning routine now down with their coffee beans infused with CBD. I've got some the rub with beeswax and arnica for, when I'm sore. But they've also got like all sorts of actual buds, which I have yet to smoke. And they also have gummies if you're not into smoking. But I haven't tried those yet. But Matt, why don't you give us the report on the buds with the smoking?
Yeah, it's great. Like I said earlier, I was a skeptic of smoking CBD buds, but these are actually very pleasant and very, like organic, I guess. Multiple people have been saying on Twitter that they had the exact same trajectories I had, with a skeptic to actually finding that this is actually something that's pleasant to smoke maybe before bed or when you want to calm down. So,
yeah, and I need that quite often. And you can get it now for 20% off. They're fans of the show. So when we said, what do you want to do for a coupon code? They said left is best. One word, all small letters, left is best. Head over to sunsetlakecbd.com. Left is best in the coupon code. You get 20% off. Also, uncertain times, a lot of people are adopting pets, which is a good thing. And now there's an ability, it used to be just like, what kind of dog is that? I don't know. It's just a mutt. Got a bunch of, I don't know. It looks like it's got this, it's got that. Now you can not only find out breed characteristics from your dog, but you can also find out, and this is, I think even more important, frankly, with Embark DNA. Embark provides the resources to help you and your vet care to your dog's specific needs. They can identify over 350 breeds. They can screen for over 175 genetic health conditions. I think most dog owners know that like over 50% of dogs are either at risk or a carrier of a genetic disease. Embark will help you learn their health history and in many ways their health future. Kelly used Embark for Edie's, her dog Edie, and she said there's a ton of information about her. She tested clear for all the 171 genetic health conditions they screened for. She's not a carrier. She's not at risk for any of the genetic diseases that they screen, and 170 plus of them. There's also a full clinical trait report. So much great news, but more importantly, I can provide the report to her vet, which is going to help with so much information with Edie's health as she grows up. Different dogs, like people, respond to different types of food. And if you have a dog that has a genetic predisposition towards a disease, good to know that early, treat it, keep an eye out for it. We heard from a listener, Aaron, whose dog Gregor is his brother's dog. Jacob's dog has been a huge help in Jacob's issues like with socialization and whatnot, and knowing that they can treat that dog and take care of it the best they can has been a huge boon for them. And then there's also fun stuff where you can find out like the dog's cousins. Somebody on IM sent that to me, and that was pretty awesome. So check it out. Right now, Embark has an exclusive offer for just our listeners. You can go to embarkvet.com now. Use the promo code majority to save 15% off your dog, breed, and health kit. Visit embarkvet.com. Use the promo code majority to save 15% today. All right. We don't need to take a break, do we? Just bring on Brandon. Is he in the waiting room?
He's transitioning from the waiting room to live now. So,
oh, I love when that happens.
Somewhere in between.
Should I give him one of these? Just like I don't think we have a song. Whoa! You're gonna have to fix that in post. Sorry, buddy.
I will.
That was crazy. Ladies and gentlemen, you may know him as Pretty Bad Lefty on Twitter, or maybe you know him as the host, co-host. The host or co-host of the Discourse. Oh my God! He's got his Majority Report T-shirt on. That's one of the old school ones. Brandon, welcome to the program.
Oh no, thank you for having me. I'm always happy to be, invited places.
And thank you for wearing the Majority Report shirt. That's one of the old school ones, right? Isn't it?
I believe so. Let me just lower the camera down in case the people can't see. It says the Majority Report. Well, it says the with Sam Cedar Majority Report, but I think it.
That's the way we refer to it. That's the way.
That's the official title. Yeah.
That's the way insiders refer to it.
Old heads.
Now, remind me: are you the host or the co-host of the Discourse, or do you even make that distinction?
I mean, I'm the co-host. I'm the co-host. I have 3 other hosts who join me for adventures.
Great. And how are you doing? How are you finding the lockdown?
I mean, it's fine. All of those open up gym protests I've been funding with my Patreon money haven't really come to fruition. So, it might be a waste. I don't know how the Koch brothers managed to get the Tea Party movement off the ground. Seems like a real dip in quality.
You may need a little bit more money, Brandon. That might, sometimes you just got to throw a ton of money at these things. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about. There was an interesting story today, and I generally don't. Headline something that Steve Mnuchin says. Okay. But he was in an interview with the Hill's Bob Cusack during a virtual event, I guess. And he said, we're going to have to carefully review the next few weeks. I think there's a strong likelihood we will need another bill, but we just have $3 trillion we're pumping into the economy. And so they're going to step back a few weeks and think very clearly how they need to spend more money and if we need to do that. I mean, it seems to me inevitable that they're going to have to. But it also seems to me it is at least encouraging that Mnuchin, for whatever reason, feels like he's got to concede this. Like he is starting to sort of pave the road, as it were. So with that said, let's talk about how the Democrats have set up their ask, right? Because we know the Republican agenda is going to be to go in there and maybe diminish liability for corporations in this situation. They're going to go in there and they're going to just, I don't know, posture as if they need to cut down on safety net issues. Give me your sense of how the Democrats have set themselves up or are failing to for this, and whether you're encouraged at all by that sort of coalition that formed, I guess it was earlier this week, to push Pramila Jayapal's legislation.
Well, I mean, let's take it in chunks, right? So up until this week, up until the formation of that particular, let's say special interest, not special interest, that group starring or promoting Pramila Jayapal's plan forward, I think the Democratic Party had largely abdicated responsibility for, using the pandemic to further any real, I would say even liberalish, center-left, worker-focused goals, right? It seems like they've mostly been focusing on, bailing out lobbyists, a few sort of handouts to donors, and then maybe one or two concessions to the working class, extra $600 per week. You can't just throw that. You can't pretend like that's not meaningful. But, going in, I kind of, for some reason, had higher expectations of the Democratic Party that they might use this because, hey, yeah, Trump did bungle the first part. They might use this as a real opportunity to not just promote their brand, but actually, force a few things in. Like, put the Republicans' feet to the fire. Like, if you don't, actually help the working class out, then, we're going to use that against you in the November elections. But what gives me a little bit of pause, even with the sort of the elevation of Pramila Jayapal, is that at least a decent portion of what I've seen from them so far has been more aligned with, like, let's see how bad Trump is going to make it. Let's see how bad the Republican Party is going to make it for the country. And then, we're going to use that as more of a cudgel to force people to vote for us. And I think that that's the dangerous game to play. And one of the reasons why it's dangerous is because you have people like Steve Mnuchin who are going to come out and be forced to, just by nature of what's happening to the vast majority of workers in the country, make some kind of concession. And you don't want to see what happened at the beginning of the pandemic, which is Republicans somehow outflanking the left when it comes, or outflanking the Democrats at least, when it comes to what they're offering. If you have a Steve Mnuchin on the Republican side who's saying, yeah, we might have to hand out some more bailouts, and then you have a Larry Summers on the Democrat side who's like, maybe yes or no, it seems as though the Republican Party might be in the Democrat Party might be in a more dangerous position when it comes to what they're expecting, or like what the Republican Party might just have to do to avoid this sheer collapse, right? The Republican Party might be given just a little bit more, impetus, because they're technically in charge of the government, with Trump being president, to actually move forward with some kind of plan, while Democrats are just, kind of, dropping the ball here.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me like, right, that we have a couple of different horizons that we can look at when it comes to, oh my God. This is the biggest glass of water I've ever seen in my life.
That's a jug. I drink water out of jugs because I have no lifters.
Wow.
So, that's the smallest volume of water I can drink at any given point in time.
All right, but I'm sorry. All right, it seems to me like we have a number of different horizons, right? Like, we could look at this in terms of the November election. We could look at this in terms of the horizon of what we anticipate just the sort of lockdown or quasi lockdown to be, and then the horizon of how long will this economic event, the event as an economic phenomena, last, and then of course long term. And it seems to me that their strategy is exclusively about the election. And like you say, I think it's questionable in that regard. I mean, I don't know if the Republicans can get to the left in a meaningful way of Joe Biden, or, I mean, they could literally, but in terms of like the election, like, I don't think they're necessarily going to, I increasingly, I feel like a lot of this stuff is static. Now, it may be the case that if Donald Trump came out tomorrow and said, we're going to expand Medicare temporarily, then that would change the dynamic. But when you get into sort of like more small bore stuff, I'm not sure that's going to impact. But I think you're right. Like, there seems to be such a relentless, well, first off, I think Nancy Pelosi ideologically does not like to spend money, even though there's very real and increasingly more evidence, I think, like almost universal understanding that you need to in this situation. But I also think that they are refusing again to hold the Republican Party broadly to account. And so they don't want to put out a bill that will make distinctions between them and the Republicans. They just want to basically watch Trump fail, which I mean, I think it's a strategy, and I think he will, but it is, they're afraid to do anything for fear of any type of backlash.
I would agree with that. And let me just say before I continue that I like your mustache. It's very Bob's Burgersy. It's very,
thank you.
It's very, very nice. very full, not like mine, but what can you do in these trying times?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think I think the sort of the fan fiction that comes out regarding like maybe Donald Trump just magically one day wakes up and decides to do like single pay or decides to push any number of like theoretically, center left proposals or further left proposals through just as a mechanism for like getting the economy moving and making sure there's no like revolution is a bit out there. I think more dangerous is that the Republican Party would be seen doing something while the Democratic Party would be seen as doing nothing. And I think that's sort of this sort of calculation that the Democratic Party has kind of excluded from their calculus when it comes to understanding how voters are determining who to vote for, which is that, the Republican Party might be, let's say, fumbling any number of things when it comes to coronavirus, but for a good number of weeks, they were the only ones out there putting forth anything. The Democratic Party had mostly just gone home. The House had kind of gone home to eat ice cream. Joe Biden was missing more or less for a while. And the Republican Party was, out there putting their face in front of the people, which it did in fact increase marginally increase the amount that people felt like they were handling it, well. And so there is, I think, a danger in creating a dynamic between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, even just focusing on November, where the Democratic Party is seen as useless and not actually doing anything. And the Republican Party is just seen as like, well, they bungled it, but they were there, right? They were there.
I agree with this. And I think that it seems to me it's been a failure from day one. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be just like the economic relief things. Like there should be every day a message that all the Democrats are saying that obviously, like, I think a lot of people are tuning out of like this kind of media, political media right now and whatnot. It's not, the issues are not, sort of like cut and dry and, but there could be a message that goes out every day. Like, for instance, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and Joe Biden announced, on Monday, we've all talked to, we've talked to a team of epidemiologists. There should be 70, I'm just throwing out numbers because I haven't, sat down with epidemiologists to work this, but to successfully combat this, by June 7th, there needs to be an 83% saturation rate of availability of antibody testing across the nation. We need to have X number percent of people tested for antibodies. And then the next day they got to come out with, and we need X number of testing available for people across the nation to find out if they have coronavirus. We should have, as a nation, 60% of the country covered by, contact tracing apps by a certain date. So that way, like, you're setting up benchmarks so that the media can report, according to the Democratic benchmark, Republicans failed, right? Like just to give a scorecard for people who, are not that in touch with what's going on, and to make it, a shorthand thing. Like these are just simple like messaging stuff that would actually also be helpful in terms of getting because what the administration has done is twofold. One is their strategy they're following from a medical standpoint is, if we don't record it, because you've seen the stuff from the CDC where they have now commingled the data between testing for coronavirus and testing for antibodies. And they've commingled this data, making the data useless, but making it seem like there is less positive testing going on relative to the community. And therefore, basically hiding how much coronavirus we have out there. And it's all just basically a game plan. Like, we're getting back to the days, I don't know if you remember this, the reality-based community, where they're just like, where the Bush administration said, you guys are in the reality-based community. We're not. We create reality. And that's what they're doing. They are trying to make people believe it's not there. And to a certain extent, it's obviously having some impact. And Democrats should be out there just saying, like, here are benchmarks that they're failing to hit.
No, I mean, I agree. I think last time I was on the show, we talked about how the coronavirus, this might have been with Alex Perrine, or maybe it wasn't, but how this is a battle in many cases, and this is the detriment of like society and public health, a battle of optics, because in many ways that's what our entire political media apparatus has become. Like, who can sort of manufacture or construct the best optics, the best narrative in the media? And Democratic Party has been absent on trying to take control of this narrative from the beginning. They sort of just like abdicated control of the narrative with the hopes that Republican Party would do what they do, which is essentially funnel money from the wealthiest from the poorest to the wealthiest, and leave large sections of society just completely bereft of help. And that was a correct calculation of our Democrats, because that's largely what's happened. However, I think when you're talking about what, I had David Dayen on last week. I believe so did you, actually. And, one of the things that he was holding out for in terms of Biden was that the realities of coronavirus, the realities of the long-term economic impacts of coronavirus on just unemployment and on, the housing market might in some ways push Biden to do other things that otherwise he would not do. Just like the realities of having to, this is not a left or right issue in some sense. It's just like, here's just what we need to do to keep the lights on. Here's just what we need to do to make sure we don't have like 40 million people in the streets, either hungry or rioting. The fear for that is that if you let things get so bad under Trump without some kind of, about some sort of impulse to correct that narrative or position yourself as offering a real alternative, then that might just put Trump in the real position where like that Biden might have been in, which is, okay, here's just what we have to do to keep the lights on. Here's just what we have to do to make sure we don't have people dying in the streets. And in the absence of Democratic Party that has a real structural solution, or even just like a series of symbolic goalposts to put in front of them, that's like, here's what we demand that you do in order for us to consider what you're doing effective, then the Republican Party can just control and say, well, you know what? Like, we gave out $2,000 a month until it was over with Donald Trump's name on the check, and that's just a wrap. That's just what it is.
Right. That's I think a very good way of putting it. Because certainly, like you, I think it's unlikely that Donald Trump is going to roll out some type of grand, leftist proposal to save everybody, but at the same time, this is a guy who is adept enough to know the last time he ran not to push cuts for Social Security and Medicare. And, he's desperate in, October 1, and he just says, that's it. Or September, he says, we're cutting checks, cut checks, I want cut checks. And you don't want the Democrats to be in the position of like, no, you shouldn't be cutting checks. Like, if they wanted to push that legislation, they could just push it. And Mitch McConnell may have a problem with it, but I don't know if Donald Trump at the end of the day would have any, I don't think he's married to anything ideological. I think he's just wants to make sure that he gets reelected if he can.
So go ahead.
No, but I think your point is well taken. We can hope that Joe Biden is detached enough from some type of agenda, which it really sort of feels like he is on some level, that he could be just faced with the idea of like, just from pure Keynesian economics, you've got to just spend a ton of money right now. Who's to say that Donald Trump couldn't be subject to the same thing?
Honestly, if this were a circumstance where you had the Republican Party, by nature of the circumstances, going on saying, okay, we're going to cut everybody a $2,000 check, and then the Democratic Party came out and actually sort of promoted some sort of big structural plan, like a big bucket of solutions, strengthening Social Security, strengthening Medicare, promoting single-payer healthcare, just like real infrastructure to not only solve the problem as it stands right now, but also sort of put things in place so that this doesn't happen in the future, but also put things in place so that once this is all over, we're seeing just like people on an upward trajectory. That would argue would be like a real conversation. The same way, conversation between a UBI only Andrew Yang type plan and UBI being part of a bucket of like structural changes would be a real conversation to have about the best way to deal with coronavirus. I think that Trump might just be getting bored. It's just like, and I think a lot of people might just be getting bored. I think, drawing on the hydroxychloroquine situation, like a lot of people sort of were promoting the idea that, hey, you know what, Trump, if he's promoting this, he's making money in some way doing this, which is possible. But I think just like, a large portion of Americans who are, tuning out political media in these times, he might just be bored of hearing of coronavirus. He might just be bored of hearing a news story go on for longer than 2 weeks or 24 hours. And I say that because the impulse then to just like, okay, well, I'm tired of people complaining, I'm just going to cut a check, becomes a lot more of a real, just like less of a calculated move, which I don't believe Trump makes, and more of just like a whatever, like whatever, we'll just cut a check.
Right. All it
and
involves
then the Republican
is
Party
Jared
might just go in
Kushner
lockstep
coming
with
in
that.
and going like, we could just cut checks to everybody.
Yeah, could just cut a check, and then the Republican Party go like, okay, well, whatever, cut a check. You have to spend it in the next 5 days. It is what it is, and like that. And then that puts, like we said, Democratic Party in a weird position of coming out saying, okay, well, we don't want you to cut checks. We want you to means test or do some other nonsense that no one is going to really be interested in.
Right.
It's just like,
yeah. I mean, all right. Well, let's pivot over to what's happening. I mean, right now we're just in this sort of dead zone where Democrats have put that $3 trillion package. Never seen.
I'm a thirsty man.
Jug of water.
I'm a thirsty guy.
Democrats have put out this $3 trillion package. It is maybe they're going to pass a separate piece of legislation to push Jayapal's paycheck protection thing. But, every day that goes by, that becomes less relevant. Because to pay, well, I mean, we're going to hit the dates. The first dates of the PPP, I think, are probably coming up April, May, within a week or two, it seems to me, maybe 3 weeks for the first round of the paycheck protection. Because I think it was supposed to go 8 to 10 weeks. The second one is going to happen sometime in late June, I think it is. Presuming everybody, got those on the first couple of days. So by the time we get into early July, you're going to have a lot of small businesses that are either going to be looking around and they're saying, okay, my business can't open because of the lockdown, or has to a certain extent, but people aren't coming because they're afraid still. Maybe that's when the Jayapal program of essentially paying companies to pay their employees rather than going through like this whole rigmarole that's involved, would be impactful. Hopefully they pass that. But meantime, the Republicans, and maybe it's just a function of Donald Trump being a lunatic, are pushing this Obamagate thing. And for the life of me, I can't understand what the hell they think they're going to get out of this.
Frankly, I don't even know what Obamagate is in real detail. I heard it said, and it's one of those stories that I looked into for a few seconds. I was like, you know what? This is not for me. this is not for me. It's just another series of things that, if I investigated every single thing Trump said, we would be in a different place. But I mean, I think that this is, in many ways, it fits, from what I can understand, to be true about Obamagate. Both the Democratic and Republican Party are in the pandemic finding that large parts of their ideological toolkit that they've been working from for the past 30, 40 years are just simply not useful right here. The Democratic Party may be more so than Republicans in the sense that this sort of vague appeal to the symbolism of social justice, this sort of vague appeal to decency and propriety, it's fine absent real material stressors coming down on you. But in the position where a lot of people are in right now, where they went from having a job last week to not having a job this week, they went from having, access to healthcare a few weeks ago, which they were told, was going to more or less, well, at least which they assumed was more or less going to be moving forward into the future through their employer, no longer exists. And that, I think, puts them in a very weird position where they're being forced to try to at least expand their ideological toolkit. On the other side, you have the Republicans, which is just their ideological toolkit is racism. It's just doing some racism. And for me, Obamagate, being sort of obsessed with Obama, that's just a callback to birtherism. That's just a callback to the things that put Trump in the political spotlight. So I would not be surprised if this was just more of lashing out, of a grasping at straws. He might bring out the wall again. Maybe the wall will see a resurgence. Just going, just playing the hits, which is that there is a large conspiracy to protect Obama. That any number that maybe he'll send more people to Hawaii again. But if, from my perspective, like we're going to see, at least, I mean, I imagine what we're going to see, at least over as if things continue to get worse, is, just a bunch of grasping at straws until somebody, Republicans and Democrats, are forced to actually do something, actually do something that's a little bit more, comprehensive.
It's a good time to play this clip that and I remember this originally. It was came to my attention in a thread that Dave Nywert put together. In response, we did this response to Meghan McCain 2 or 3 days ago, where she said that Obama ushered in Donald Trump. And my response has been for a long time about John McCain prior to even his death, was this dude is responsible for Donald Trump because Sarah Palin was essentially was the door, the road, everything about Donald Trump that exists can be successful in our politics when he ran in 2016 was a function of Sarah Palin normalizing certain things that should have been out of the norm. And this speaks to also why Trump thinks Obamagate will work. But I also think it speaks to why Obamagate won't work, because this clip is from 2008 and Obama won. Here. This is an Al Jazeera clip from a Palin rally in 2008.
A small town in the swing state of Ohio is where Sarah Palin addresses some of her core supporters. This area is mostly white and working class. And here's what some have to say about presidential candidate Barack Obama.
I'm afraid if he wins, the black will take over. It's not a Christian. This is a Christian nation. What is our country going to end up like?
When you've got a Negro running for president, you need a first stringer. He's definitely a second stringer.
He seems like a sheep or a wolf in sheep's clothing, to be honest with you. And I believe Palin, she's filled with the Holy Spirit, and I believe she's going to bring honesty and integrity to the White House.
He's related to a known terrorist, for one. He is friends with a terrorist of this country.
He must support terrorists. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it must be a duck. And that, to me, is Obama.
Just the whole the Muslim thing and everything. I mean, everybody's still a lot of people have forgotten about 9/11, but I don't know. It's just kind of a little unnerving.
Obama and his wife, I'm concerned that they could be anti-white, that he might hide that.
I don't like the fact that he thinks us white people are trash, because we're not.
There you have it. I think, look, you can go to any rally and find, some marginal people, but I've been to rallies like this. I went to a couple of Glenn Beck's down on the mall, and not hard to find these people. Go ahead.
No, I agree. I mean, I think Obama conspiracy theories form the crux of a lot of Republican Party, either both fringe movements like the Tea Party, that was in many ways like they really adopted a lot of Obama conspiracy theories, and just like they eventually got folded into the party. Think about Obamagate. From what I recall, it was like a series of unspecified accusations and conspiracy theories. It's just one large bucket, which Trump had done before, hoping that, it just resonates with some people, right? So that you might, he had my wires tapped, or he's anti-white. There's like grasping at straws, I think.
But I mean, how, we're in now May, we're almost into the general election, right? For all intents and purposes. Why are they starting to unroll this whole thing now? This is a January of this year strategy. They're talking to a subset of the people that they need in the general election. And these are the people who they're talking to, the people who would allow him to shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue. And it just seems bizarre to me. In fact, Bill Barr came out the other day and said, we will not be bringing charges based upon what we know, because they got this whole Durham investigation about investigating the investigators coming out. We're not going to bring charges against Joe Biden and Barack Obama, regardless of what they did. So he's setting it up like they did bad things, but he also, but we're not going to charge them, because he knows that they don't have anything to charge him with. But Lindsey Graham is squawking that he's going to try and bring these people in to testify. He obviously needs that in South Carolina. I understand that why Lindsey Graham is doing it. But Donald Trump's going to need a little more than South Carolina to win. And reminding everybody about how bad Obama was because he was black and Muslim, I just don't see that that's going to bring out enough people to vote for Trump.
I mean, I don't think it's a real, like, legitimate, thought-out strategy. I think, I think it's easy to sort of pretend sometimes that Trump is going through some sort of masterful mindset. But really, I think, and it's been true since before Trump was president, back to the birther stuff, like, Trump has a little bit, maybe a lot of it, of an insecurity problem, especially as it relates to Obama specifically. I mean, we remember at the White House Correspondents' Dinner when, like, they made fun of the birther thing, and Obama, basically, they just laughed at Donald Trump to his face. They laughed at the very idea of him. And he's very thin-skinned. And so, like, there is a portion of this that is like, okay, it's red meat for base. It's red meat for the people, the most virulent race in the Democratic Party. It'll get a few far-right senators like Lindsey Graham, so a few points in, like, South Carolina. But more so, it's just Donald Trump, again, I think, lashing out over Obama, who people are actively reminiscing about during his presidency right now. I think insofar why now is that there is more and more Obama, not apologists, but Obama nostalgia in the media and amongst the people towards, like, hey, Obama would be handling this better. Right. Obama would be doing better than, along with George W. Bush. Like, and I think that reminiscing might have actually boiled over. It's like, oh, well, you miss Obama. Well, let me tell you about Obama. He's actually, a gay Muslim terrorist? Like, if only, right? But it turns out, like, no, of course not. Admittedly, not the weirdest conspiracy theory I've ever heard about Obama. I've heard that he's actually a clone of an ancient Egyptian prince. A lot of layers there. But Obama.
Wait, that's a conspiracy theory? I thought that was just given knowledge.
I mean, frankly, it depends on how far down the rabbit hole you want to go. But the larger point is that even outside the Republican Party, the first black president was the center of a lot of attention. How he, the fact that he won, the fact that he governed so long and was, generally so applauded, has animated a lot of conspiracy theories about him in just various reactionary parts of the, America, just because of how, like, that's supposed to happen.
I've been kicking around this, and I've read this, and a couple of people have told me this over the past couple of weeks. That a part of Biden's appeal to African Americans is that here was a, relatively powerful white guy in his 60s, I guess, who was willing to have a black boss and basically be, like second fiddle. Do you think that has any resonance in the African American community as to why Biden's appreciated to the extent that he is?
Not insofar as that, he was willing to have a black boss. When the whole primary first started, I actually went around talking to a lot of people just in my neighborhood, just doing a little impromptu. It's like, who's on people's minds, who's not on people's minds. And the names that I heard, especially from older black people, even in Brooklyn, even amongst, like, people just in my direct, engagement, was Biden, Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, because they kind of liked his passion and his being animated towards, like, social justice, etc. But Biden specifically because Obama picked him, and they felt that was sort of a stamp of approval. Like, hey, you know what? This is somebody that Obama would not mind replacing him as the president of the United States of America if the worst case scenario happened. The calculus that Obama chose him to kind of, ingratiate himself with the older, more right wing, especially on issues of social equality and race, part of the Democratic Party, is kind of lost to a lot of people, but that sort of, like, Obama said this guy is all right is very much a big part of Joe Biden's appeal. And I would also argue it's a big part of why a lot of people are, beholden to trying to defend Joe Biden and Joe Biden's past and Joe Biden's present, past the point where I think it's reasonable. It's because it has to be, like, protecting Obama and protecting Obama's protecting the precision. Exactly. Protecting the opinion of people that Obama was making the right judgment call when it came to Joe Biden. When in reality, I mean, it was a calculation that may or may not have paid. I mean, it paid off because he won, but a calculation that paid off. But, like, the actual calculus, I think, has been lost. It's become like, oh, Joe Biden is a trustworthy person.
Okay, so with that said, Brandon, and let's play this clip. We have a clip of, I'm sure that you're aware of, Joe Biden was was on the Breakfast Club with Charlemagne da God. And so if that's the case, that, Biden he had this imprimatur from Obama. He has this imprimatur from Clyburn, specifically South Carolina. A lot of that went a long way to getting Biden to, and he hasn't quite secured the nomination yet, but and hope springs eternal. But assuming he does, that's a big part of it. Here he is on with Charlemagne the God. I think he was joking here. I think. But the problem with Joe Biden's joke here, if it is a joke, is that it fits the formula that he said to many people on the campaign trail. And which is like, this is my standard. You don't want to vote for me? Don't vote for me. But he's not, doesn't quite land a joke here. If I was Joe Biden's campaign people, I would have been like, if you feel like you're about to make a joke about something like this, probably better not to. But here is the end of that conversation.
Well, thanks so much. That's really our time. I apologize.
You can't do that to black media.
Pause it for 1 second and start at the beginning. I should say there's a third voice you hear that I think is in Joe Biden's living room, where his press handler is saying like, hey, we have to move on, which of course, that's standard fare. Usually what happens though, like when you're doing a radio interview, is they'll stand behind the candidate and they'll go, we got to wrap it because he's got to go do something or something like that. But so that's what that voice is. All right, go.
Well, thanks so much. That's really our time. I apologize.
You can't do that to black media.
I can't do that to white media and black media because my wife has to go on at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Oh, I'm in trouble.
Listen, you got to come see us when you come to New York, VP Biden.
I will.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
It don't have nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with the fact I want something for my community.
Well, I guess that's all we got there from the end of that clip. But, so, I feel like he was trying to make a joke. I don't want to, do a joke construction thing. Like, it's hard to know what the laugh line part of that was. But what's your take on that?
Well, I just want to say I haven't watched The Breakfast Club since they replaced Molly Ringwald with Charlemagne the God, so I'm not the foremost expert on this. Right. I will say I think that Molly Ringwald will have challenged him a little bit harder there, but that's just I don't know. I don't want to impugn anyone's character, but sure. If it wasn't a joke per se, let's say it was meant in jest, right? Let's say it was meant like he wasn't serious. Like you're literally not black if you don't vote. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Why not? It seems fair. I think the problem for a lot of people though is that reflects a certain level of entitlement that Democratic Party specifically feels to black voters vote essentially. And I think Charlemagne's response to that was, maybe not as forceful as I would have been, but like true. It's like, it's not about being, it's not about not knowing about Trump or not. It's about like, well, what are you actually offering the black community in trade for their vote? Like the idea that you have to actually earn this vote or reciprocate on this block of voters that you feel as though is, the core of Democratic Party's electoral strategy in many places. Like, hey, you know what? We got to have the black vote. Then there should be some kind of reciprocation there. But I think largely speaking, just within our culture, the idea that the Democratic Party, that politicians are responsible for like reciprocating a level of, I don't know what you call it, reciprocating some sort of positive benefit for your vote has kind of been eroded. I think we've seen this slow supplantation of the American people as like voters and citizens who have rights, who have like, hey, you know what? If I vote for you, if I vote for Obama, it's if the black population votes for Obama, if the population of X votes for Obama, it's reasonable to expect that Obama or Joe Biden might do something for that population. I think it's been kind of a transition to Democratic Party, their base, their voters as fans. And it's like, and fans aren't entitled to anything in reciprocation for their support. They just are expected to do that per se.
Yeah, I think, well, on just a purely rhetorical level, right? The argument, and I happen to think that there is some truth to the argument of like, you got two choices, me or Donald Trump. If I'm Joe Biden, and I'm better, than he is. I think that's true.
That's fair.
I think it's incredibly lazy and indicative of being not a very good candidate if that's your pitch. Right? Like if that's your pitch, and this seems to be basically the whole premise of his campaign has been like, you got two choices. It's going to be me or Trump. If you don't like me, go vote for Trump. And, I happen to think that's true, but I think that doesn't necessarily mean that that's like the best pitch for you to go forward, because you still have to convince people to vote for you. And you need to offer them you need to show them why that's the case. Telling them is not necessarily the most effective thing. Like I say, I think it's true. But I don't know that, that's the best way to make that case to people, particularly, I think there are things you could roll out and say like, well, wait a second, we have a lot of truth here, but you could say something to the effect of like, look, we have, there was a poll that came out today. Well, 3 times more African Americans and Latinos know somebody who's died from COVID than white people. And you could get into the structural reasons for that. And you could get into the societal problems. And you could say, like, look, now it's not as funny or in jest, but you could say, like, I'm committed to doing X, Y, and Z that Donald Trump would never contemplate doing. And, even if you like, and maybe there's there's a dark, funny way of making that joke. Like, if you're voting for Trump over me, you're going to get your black card revoked or whatever, like dumb 19, I don't know when that was, that whole meme, but you're going to get that revoked or at least stamped or something like, just some dumb joke. But if you can't execute that joke, don't do it, for God's sakes. Just be serious.
You should leave the problematic racial humor to the professionals like me. But no, I think Charlemagne, I think that you're right. I think that, we can look at this objectively and say that like the Democratic Party in many ways are better than the Republican Party. That's just that's an undeniable fact. In many ways, they're not better enough. In many ways, they aren't better. But like, just if you're looking at the total picture from like in a vacuum, they are better. However, I think Democratic Party's brand, at least their electoral viability, has always had the undercurrent of like, well, yeah, but if you're not with us, you're with them. That was one of their bumper stickers too. And like, so at the core of their vote, at the core of their party's electoral strategy, is not structural change. It's not, expanding Social Security. It's not, establishing new bureaucracies or new institutions or new agencies to correct social injustice. It's just, we're the other guys. And they rely on a large part of the people, they rely on that kind of gap of proactively defining themselves to allow for their voters to sort of fill in the blanks. Well, if the Republican Party is racist, then we're not racist. The Republican Party is this, then we're that. This sort of oppositional definition of themselves. However, I think that what that strategy kind of forgets is that like people don't have to vote. It's easy to try to shame people into voting, but yeah, if you're not with Donald Trump, you're with me, or if you're not with me, you're with Donald Trump. That kind of works as like, tautology or cyclical reasoning. But, people aren't trapped into a binary decision. They can just decide, well, Donald Trump is bad. Joe Biden, Democrats are feckless. They're effete. They don't really offer me anything. So I simply won't vote. And I think Charlemagne the God, whatever problems he has, just by nature of not being beholden to like the sort of political media, like apparatus, knows plenty of people who just aren't going to vote, who are like, oh yeah, I'm not going to vote for those people because whatever. Like they're not doing anything. I voted for Obama because Obama was black, or I voted for Obama because Obama was saying progressive things. Joe Biden's not offering anything and is not offering any of that, and he can't even be bothered. I think and that this speaks to sort of Democratic Party relying on Trump.
Yes. I think that's the key. You're going on a show. It's like you're not going on Chris Hayes's program.
Yeah.
Right. Like you're not going on, you're not on with Joy Reid. You're on with a largely like, an apolitical show for the most part. And you're reaching, a lot of potential non-voters. And you've got to give them a compelling reason. and he failed to do that. I mean, that's just like poor campaigning. But
It is. I
it's
mean,
Joe Biden.
Like even if I were to say, okay, well, yeah, Joe Biden has this platform, I don't particularly believe that he's going to be proactive in enacting all things. You could at least try. I mean, you could at least try, just from like agnostically from my position as somebody like, yeah, I'm not really into Joe Biden, but I can recognize that. Try, like, people give people opportunity to believe you and believe in you if you really think that they can. But in this case, like we're seeing, I think Democratic Party's viability stripped down to its barest bones. We're not them. Don't look too closely at what we actually are. Just sort of like fill in the blanks yourself. They don't want to say anything too like strict or concrete that they might define themselves as. Instead, it's like we're the party of not Trump. And so, but I think you have to at least engage with the fact that for a lot of people, that's simply not enough because they don't recognize in their life the difference between living under Trump and living under Obama as anything than a slow trajectory downward. Maybe it ramped up a little bit, maybe it didn't. Maybe it sort of went worse faster. But there hasn't been just a time where they can recognize like just doing better, doing better because of Democrats.
Brandon Sutton, folks can find you on Twitter on Pretty Bad Lefty, and they should tune in. How many times a week are you doing the Discourse? One time a week?
I do the Discourse twice a week or more, depending on how often I can wrangle someone to talk to me. So, I mean, you can find we have one episode that came out this week and last week with David Dayen that's free to listen to. I have another episode coming out probably tomorrow or Sunday with Andrew Perez, editor who works with David Sirota. And so, tune in if you're interested. And of course, you can always become a patron too so I can afford to fund better protesters to open up gyms.
There you go. Where can people become a patron?
Well, you can become a patron of the Discourse at patreon.com/expandthediscourse. I thought it was catchy at the time. It kind of, it's a little bit,
right.
Corny now, but still.
Yeah. Well, you can't change that. Brandon, thanks so much for your time today. Appreciate it, man.
No, thank you. Always a pleasure. Don't shave the mustache.
Thank you. And I think we're gonna somehow make a meme out of that jug.
I mean, it's just the way I live my life.
And you freeze it? Is that a big ice cube in there too?
No, I forgot that I left it in the freezer, and so it froze. And now I'm just forced to deal with that.
I like the idea of that whole thing, though. But Brandon, thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
All right, folks. Now, Matt, do we need to take a quick break?
Are you going to call? You're going to call him. He's not going to be over Zoom.
No, I think he's going to be on Zoom, isn't he?
Oh, well, then he just needs to get himself into
Where
the
the heck is film guy Matthew? Did you get that email from him, Brendan?
Brendan also seems to have disappeared, so it's just you and I right now for some reason.
What?
I'm not sure what's going on here. He seemed to have dipped from the from
Brendan.
Let's see if he texted.
That's weird. I have not heard from Brendan at all.
He's not having internet troubles. Let's see. I thought he
might be out. I could try and call Matthew.
Oh, Matthew, here he is.
Oh, is he showing up?
Yeah.
Well, wait a second. Wait a second.
Sorry.
Don't do it. Show him yet. Let's do this.
Well, I need time to get his song anyway.
Oh, right. Because we were supposed to have that from Brendan. Brendan took an early vacation.
Early Friday.
Super casual Friday. Ladies and gentlemen, here, let me just I'll do this while we're waiting here. Do this.
I'm here, guys.
Well, we don't want to talk to you yet because we need to set up. So why don't you mute your thing while Matt gets his stuff together. Folks, just going over some of the news. This story about Mike Pompeo. Check it out at Talking Points memo. Mike Pompeo reportedly ordered officials at the State Department to come up with a rationale for his decision to declare an emergency last year that he used to bypass Congress in his $1 billion arms sale to Saudi Arabia. Matt, you removed him from the show.
Oh, I thought crap. Well, tell him to click the link again.
Click the link again, Brendan.
I tried to remove Brandon, not Brendan.
Oh, I see.
I think he.
But the Senate and the House were getting very skeptical about these Saudi Arabian deals. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the idea of emergency, but when you have an emergency, you don't need to construct it. It is the very nature of an emergency. And when you've asked someone to construct an emergency to bypass Congress for $1 billion arms sale, that is something you would want the Inspector General to look into, the State Department, if that person was not fired. So people should check out that story at Talking Points Memo. This Pompeo thing, it seems like it's one of those rare occasions where Democrats are like, hey, we are going to look into this and use our massive oversight powers to look into this, despite the fact that we're not doing that for anything else. But folks can check that out at Talking Points Memo. In the meantime, Matt, do we have Brendan's thing?
I'm working on that right now. I'm trying to add it. It's a kind of a permanent removal situation. So I'm going to try to get Brendan.
You just permanently removed Brendan from the show?
So what happened is on the list.
I don't know if you're allowed to do that.
Brandon Sutton removed himself right as I was about to remove him. So it moved Brendan down the list, and then I accidentally removed him. So hopefully.
I'm trying to see if I have Film Guys, Matthews.
Shit.
Okay. All right. Well, we don't have your sound effect today, Matthew. I am really sorry about that.
Again, Sam.
What's that?
That's fine. I'm used to it.
Time?
No, that's fine. Who's really keeping track of this stuff? Not me. It's fine.
Well, I don't know. I look at it now. What is going on with your audio? You're a professional audio video guy, and your audio is really not great. Where are you calling from?
I'm in my office. Same place I do all my Zooms. How's it sound now?
It's not good. It sounds like you're using your computer audio instead of your microphone, if you're using a microphone. Or are you using those like earbuds?
Yes. That's what I use for all my Zooms.
Yeah, I got news for you. They're not telling you, but your Zoom sounds horrible.
I'm sorry, Sam. Let me see what I can do.
Is your microphone one of those things that go around the wire like this, or is it just in ear?
Hold on a second. Let me try this.
Does this audio sound any better?
It does a little bit better. Yeah, if you turn it up a little bit.
Okay, let's try that.
Yeah, well, I mean, your visual is so weird. It sounds like you're in a box. So I think that works. I think people are. I mean, do you do this on your business meetings? Do you do like this whole thing going on in the background there?
No, don't you recognize the background, Sam?
Is it Tron?
It's Max Headroom, Sam. I'm talking to you from 20 minutes in the future.
Oh, there we go.
All right, I'll lose it. I'll lose it. There you go.
Oh, geez. Oh, wow. And man, look at you with the beard. That beard is pretty bushy.
I'm pushing it. Mary's giving me a little grief for it, but I'm going to see how long I can take it until it basically self-destructs.
Wow, and your apartment's looking good. You've done a lot of good work in there. I just remember it being a lot more of a bachelor pad and like a little bit messier, maybe.
I may have made 1 or 2 changes in the 15 years since you saw it last.
Has it been 15 years?
Something like that.
No, I imagine I was there in 12 years ago.
All right. Still, in the past 5 years, it's really the curve has gone way up.
Well, I can imagine. And I can imagine because of your eBay page that you...
That's right. All you see here is all thanks to eBay.
Yes, you've really arrived. So, Matthew Film Guy, this is a rare occasion. Well, we see you in studio on occasion, but now we get to see you on camera in your abode. Not terribly surprising, surrounded by what appears to be DVDs and film posters.
Those are books, but books, I've gone all virtual. Yeah, here,
media.
this is. You want to see? This is a little more.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen.
That's actually Mary's side of the room. If you're really interested, this is the.
Wow, look at that.
There, this is the Matthew side.
Now,
of
is that
things.
the old edit bay? Is that it?
Well, here I'm sitting at my edit bay here.
Wow.
You know, as a hashtag film guy, I have to have 3 giant screens.
Like that. Yeah, look at that. All right, pretty good. Meanwhile, I wish we could have like a. I wish we could do. All right, thank you. Okay, take it easy. I wish we could have like a B story going on in terms of Brendan's attempts to get into the Zoom. But so, Matt,
I'm happy to stall.
What this, in many respects, must be like for you heaven, where the whole world is put on hold, and really you are basically told stay at home and watch stuff.
Yeah, I feel like I've been preparing for this my entire life. And, you know, to the extent that I haven't even been able to fully enjoy the apocalypse, it's because I've been getting work and I kind of am now resenting it. Why is everybody else laid off and scared where their next meal is coming from, yet can watch films and TV? But I've managed.
So,
I've
so you're getting a lot of work. I mean, because you're an editor, you're doing exactly what you would be doing at any other time. But what do you?
Well, I wouldn't say a lot. You know, like for instance, the film Black Bear that I edited that played at Sundance. You know, I got an agent right after that, and film production has just gone in the tank. So there's nothing really happening with that as of now. So that's a big bummer. Right as I was on the precipice of you know, getting involved more.
You took a page out of my career and had your like peak moment of leverage coincide with something that was completely out of your hands, and it just went away.
Was your thing completely out of your hands? What was that?
Well, when Pilot Season was bought by Trio Network and they played it, like literally, it was their first
the network
fiction. They're the first fiction show that they bought, and then they were sold and closed like 2 months later.
Yeah. But that was a good show. It'll have its time.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
I thought you were going to say the Iraq War started and you just had to, like, you know, you do this now. Like, that's what changed your life. That's like a more World War kind of a thing.
Well, that was my own decision. You know, that was my decision.
Well, in that case, yes, it's something similar like that happened to me. A cable station closing, a pandemic hitting. They're pretty close. They are in the long term.
I mean, very similar. Very similar.
Yeah. But you know, but I'm still, you know, I work with Ted Alexandro, so thank God for him. All the comedians are now basically doing stuff online, so his video content has gone way up. You know, we did a special called The Stay-at-Home Comedian that got a nice write-up in the New York Times. So that's leading to doing more stuff like his Instagram live stories. And you know, now we're doing a new special made up of just all the clips that they would record in the back of the clubs. So like the production values have gone down, but people don't care. They're starved for content, if you will.
Right.
And then I'm still doing his podcast now. It's gone up to twice a week. So that's keeping me busy, and that's fun stuff. Not as lucrative as some of the other stuff. And then, you know, a few other just, you know, commercial corporate stuff. But I've tried
doing commercial corporate stuff right now? Like, how are people shooting? Are you aware of them? Like shooting, like how they're are they shooting anything right now?
Did you guys play that every Corona commercial is the same video?
Yes.
That is some genius stuff right there. So all that plinky piano stuff, none of those have crossed my desk directly yet. But actually, I'm dealing with stuff that was shot before this was all happening, and they're just assuming it's still going to be relevant. So a few things have to be reshot, but it's, you know. But to back to your first point, yes, I am trying to make it seriously part of my film guy sort of, you know, just the dedication to the art of film guy is to see as many films as possible. And I think I'm knocking them off the list with some pretty good regularity. I'm still also doing, as you know, my senior citizens film appreciation class. That's all going on through Zoom, which has been fun.
Now, didn't you open that up to? Is that just senior citizens? Didn't you open that up to the?
Yeah, we've got a few upper middle age people even. So you know, like yourself, young people like yourself. And I think actually we got someone from the Majority Report who signed up, as a matter of fact. But I don't think they've actually come to class. So I don't know if they considered it like a donation. But if you're out there, join us. we'd love to have you. But yeah, the
It sounds
demographic
like my
is
kids
skewed
and
a
they're
bit younger.
homeschooling.
Yeah, that might be it. So I'm actually getting a chance to see some of the longer, more sort of difficult films. Some
Well,
of the
if
more
people
patient
want to
films.
be in the class, what would they do?
I'll resend you the link, and it's basically $10 a class, 6 classes for non-members, and you get a link of the film sent to you the previous week, and then you watch it. And then on Tuesday at noon, we get on Zoom and we have a very interesting, wide-ranging discussion about the film. It's it's not exactly very academic, but it's kind of my goal is to sort of bring more films to people that they wouldn't have sought out otherwise. Something a little bit more challenging than what you would just pick yourself or what the algorithm would pick for you on on Netflix. And I have access to some more wide-ranging films that might be right there. So yeah, wink. So it's fun for me. I've basically gotten to the point where I just show movies that I've been meaning to see, and then I sort of lead a discussion, having just seen it for myself for the first time that week, and it's great. It's a lot of fun.
All right.
Some
Well, sorry.
I would just say some very intellectually curious, upper middle age to senior citizens are in this class, so it's a good group.
All right, that's good. Well, I'm not surprised. I would imagine that your classes attract high
I've built
caliber.
quite a following. You're right. Is that what you meant to say? Yes, I have.
Yes, of course. Have you been eBaying through this? Because I would imagine this would be also like
a few, yeah. A small uptick in eBay things. Again, it's the detritus that really is what's filling my stores these days. I don't know if I'm going to be able to unload it, but we watched that film Dark Waters with Mark Ruffalo. Have you seen this movie?
Oh, actually, no. But I have interviewed on multiple occasions the lawyers that it's about.
I seem to recall that as I was watching the film, I knew a lot about this case already.
Yeah, this is the
and as soon as
C8
Mary and I
case.
got done watching that, we're going to get rid of all of our Teflon. So if anyone's out there who wants some slightly used Teflon that you don't care what it does to you, that might be going up on eBay.
Just to be clear, this is the C8 case. Mike Papantonio, I don't know if they reached to where he was the litigator. He was the one who actually went into trial at the end of this thing like 3 or 4 years ago. In fact, people can go back. You could go back actually and piece together the initial lawyer. I've interviewed him at least once or twice on Ring of Fire. Other lawyers working on the ultimate litigation that happened. And it was basically DuPont. They were making Teflon pans.
That
They were
chemical
buying a
C8
chemical from
runoff.
3M, which is the chemical is used. It's like it's a chemical used to make Teflon. It's not the actual
Right.
Teflon.
Yeah.
3M basically said, look, you have to burn this because it's so toxic and it has essentially, for all intents and purposes, has no half-life. So we have it in all of our bloods because it doesn't degrade. And so once a drop of it gets into the water, it just keeps traveling around forever, essentially. And of course, DuPont was like, man, it's expensive to burn this. What if we just dumped it in this river here? And that's what they did. A farmer found that it was killing his cows. He got in touch with a lawyer, and it's about this lawyer is the movie, who through his grandma or something like this. And the farmer ultimately died of cancer as well. The lawyer ended up getting a settlement. He said after he won that case, he said, maybe there's other cases here. And they ended up getting which had never been done before, an independent board of epidemiologists who studied the disease within a certain perimeter, cases of different diseases that should not have taken place. And ultimately, Mike Papantonio was the lawyer who went in to litigate the first couple of those cases. The defense gets one, and the plaintiff gets one. The defense gets one, And then they sort of start to negotiate, and it ended up a huge settlement that bankrupt DuPont.
Well, you might want to leave some for people to watch the movie, because some of this is the drama of the film. It's actually very interesting. And if you don't know the outcome, it is touch and go there for a little while.
Spoiler alert, if you've listened to the show for an extended period of time.
Yeah. It's still entertaining, even though I somewhat knew where it was going. But do you think you interviewed the person played by Mark Ruffalo? He was like the original lawyer who was like, he was like a plaintiff's attorney at first.
Yes.
And then
he was working for a corporate firm, essentially.
Yeah.
And his grandmother said, like, oh, I got this message from, Myrtle.
Yeah, exactly. That's the first 5 minutes of the movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was pretty good. That was directed by Todd Haynes, who made one of my favorite movies of all time, Safe. So, yeah.
Boom.
So,
I knew what it was.
You knew what it was, because it's one of the best movies of all time. Everybody
I've watched that movie multiple times.
And with like being afraid to go out and things getting on you, it's like another great movie of this time. Slightly different, but it's a great one. But I don't think this movie was as great as that. But that one definitely led to, we need to get rid of some of our cookware and get some new cookware. So now we're going ceramic.
Ceramic, good for you. Cast iron's also good, but whatever. Steel.
Too much of a pain in the ass for me. I know my limits. I can't keep a good cast iron.
I understand. I did watch Contagion to just get a sense.
That's a spooky one.
It is a little spooky. I didn't think it was that great of a movie.
No, look, Steven Soderbergh, he never makes a bad movie. Like, he'll never make like a movie you're just like, what was this? But like, he's such a, like, he just puts them out with such regularity and such sort of a competence. And that one's a good rip from the headlines kind of movie that it's still. It's
worth watching. I mean, you can, if I had seen that weeks ago, I would have known R0 is pronounced R0 as opposed to R0.
I know. And now you love saying R0. I drink every time you say R0.
Yeah, it's true. Okay. So, Matthew, film guy.
Yeah. Yeah. What else?
What should we watch? I mean, give us a couple, because, people
well,
are
I got a ton. As I indicated, I got a ton. And people, I still want to recommend people go to my letterbox.com/LangdonBoom. That's my.
They don't need to listen to you on the show, don't we?
No, this is for more. This is for more. So I say that up front to dangle it out there if you want to join me in my journey. But here's the movie that I saw this last week that just blew my mind. It's a filmmaker whose work I've been trying to see for a while. She's a German filmmaker named Maren Ade, and she made a film in 2003 called The Forest for the Trees.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best sort of low budget indie dramas that I have seen maybe ever. It's got that sort of awkward cringe comedy kind of thing. You may also be tempted to call it sort of German mumblecore if you didn't want to be too generous to it, but it is much deeper and a lot less sort of solipsistic than some of the worst mumblecore. It's shot like on DV. I believe it even was her Berlin Film School thesis film. But it's about a woman who moves to a new town to become a teacher in a school and just struggles to make friends. It's got one of these very sort of low concept sort of bases, but it's just one of the greatest kind of dramas that I've seen. And it defeats your expectations. It does give you some laughs. And it's like, now I've got to see all of her films. She got a lot more famous for her film called Tony Erdmann that some people may know. I'm working my way up to that one, but I'll probably come back to you the next 3 times I'm on here with more of her films because I fell in love with her. And
okay, the movie is Forest for the Trees, and the filmmaker's name is?
Maren, Maren, Ade, just Ade. The Germans have a different pronunciation for everything.
Yeah, I know. It's like a totally different language. Okay, so Forest for the Trees. What else you got besides that? What I
so
got?
I also showed my class the Lars von Trier movie Melancholia.
I didn't see
that's
that.
About the end of the world. That's about utter destruction of the entire planet. And it's one of these sort of oxymoronic kind of movies where a movie that's deliberately about everything ending actually left me with this feeling of just like, hey, it's all going to be okay. Like this really great sense. I've loved for years the films that give you kind of like a death trip. Like you kind of like practice dying and then you let go and you get afraid, but ultimately you achieve a sort of transcendence when you realize that nothing ultimately is destroyed. It's just transmuted. And this was one of those movies. And Lars von Trier, he's basically an a-hole with a video camera, a film camera. Right. He messes with people. He's made some great movies. He's made some horrible movies. But this is like a very sweet movie about It's basically like, you know how sometimes when you're depressed and you feel like everything's going wrong? Well, sometimes it is really going wrong.
Correct.
And that's okay.
Right. There's depression. There's depression that is a function of maybe chemical or issues that you have internally. And then there's depression that's like, oh, you're having a normal reaction to a very depressing event.
Yeah. And it's also, this movie, I seem to think it says like people who are depressed do have a sort of insight. Like it's not all just disease. Like there is a kind of sensitivity that's common to people with depression about certain things. You know what I mean? So letting those things in isn't a disease. It's a strength in some ways. And it's just like when you think the movie's going to just like twist the knife and torture you, it doesn't, which is, again, kind of a rarity for Lars von Trier. So it's one of his most uplifting movies, if you could say that about a movie about the world ending.
Now, it's been a long time, as you know, Matthew, probably more than any person around. Von Trier was a huge, was a big, not necessarily
Dogma
influence.
95.
Yes, Dogma 95 was in Vinterberg too. That dude, like those, I was very, very much into those movies back in the time when I was a filmmaker, and wasn't necessarily inspired to do what I was doing, but I sort of felt like I was a little bit in like not competition with them, but like they were of that moment.
You guys were on a somewhat parallel track.
Are they still doing that kind of film or no? Are they?
No. That was a period that they did for maybe about 5 years. But Vinterberg's last movie was like a submarine thriller. Like they've gone back to bigger stuff. And Lars von Trier, his last 4 or 5 movies, they've all been just like gorgeous, high resolution photography. Even Melancholia, there's like these painterly kind of non-narrative kind of interstitial moments that are just really messing with the form. So he's gone back to kind of sculpting with the image and not stripping it down.
And is he still my daughter's texting me during the show. She's saying nobody likes her mustache and watch Outer Banks. I don't know what that means.
Mila Film Girl, that's fine.
Yeah.
You bring her on.
She's really itching to get on the show. Is Von Trier still like afraid of flying? Wasn't that a big issue for him?
Yeah, he's still in that job. He's still personally a very problematic individual. But listen, some weirdos made some great movies, and he's on the top of the list.
All right. Do you want to give us one more? I mean, I know that's 2.
Yeah.
But
I
can
give you 2
that's
quick.
A little bit more accessible, right? I mean, there's a lot of people out there who are like, I don't want to go a foreign film, not now.
Yeah, but now is especially now. Now you have more time. Now you can binge watch your shows. I mean, listen, I'm getting to the end of the 4th season of Knight Rider too. So like I've got both things going on.
Okay, you know what? And then I want you to also give me a show to binge because I haven't had much time, to be honest with you, to watch TV.
No, I get it. We need you on that wall.
I have not had much time at all. I mean,
you've been enjoying the apocalypse less than anybody, basically.
I mean, it's not inconceivable that, but I mean, there's a lot of people who got a lot worse. But I have not had time to binge watch shows.
True.
But
I'll bang a pot for you.
I mean, there's no more Survivor, so I got that hour has opened up for me. So if I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do it once, an hour a week. What am I gonna watch? And then I want you to give us one more movie for people.
All right, I don't have anything for you along the lines of Survivor. I got no time for reality
not Survivor,
TV.
but I mean, what show should
Actually,
I
let me
binge?
tell you this. Let me tell you something that this might be come out of left field.
King. I watched that. I know that.
No, I got nothing. I got nothing. I do know the last reality show I think I watched.
Well, I don't want a reality show. I'm not asking for that. I'm just saying that my slot has opened up.
Okay, your slot. So now I understand that you're sort of stuck at home with the extended family, right? Like, so there may be some need for some crossover viewing. Is that possible?
We don't do that.
No? Okay.
Mila stays in her room, watches everything on her iPhone.
All right.
Right, Mila? Yeah, she's going to respond to that.
Well, I was gonna say that a show that I actually was surprised that I really liked a lot, which could work as a crossover, but also just works as a sitcom with like a bit of heart and a bit of intelligence, is the early 2000s show Gilmore Girls.
No,
it's like a real teenage girl show. No. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. Listen to me. Listen to your film guy. It is a extremely intelligent, well written, not just a teeny bopper show. and it will tear your heart out. And it is actually funny in a kind of His Girl Friday patter kind of comedy way. But okay, I see from your mustache
Gilmore
you
Girls,
don't like that
that's
one.
for Mila. Mila, you can watch Gilmore Girls.
But it's one that you could watch together, I'm pretty sure. In terms of shows, I don't got anything else for you, Sam. I'm still trying to catch up on Better Call Saul. Shows have gone by the wayside for me. It's either total trash like Knight Rider, or I'm watching a film that I have to pay attention to.
I can't believe you're watching Knight Rider.
Yeah, but okay, so I'll just move on. I'll just move on to the next movie. Actually, have you ever seen the Robert Altman movie California Split?
No.
That's one for you. It's considered a kind of minor Robert Altman, but I'm not the hugest Robert Altman fan to begin with, but this one really knocked me out. It's George Segal and Elliot Gould play two guys that just meet at a poker game and kind of just like have a mutual obsession with gambling. And it's sort of a ramshackle narrative with all the overlapping dialogue and all the sort of choose your own adventure mise en scène where you're not sure where to look, and just that Robert Altman kind of world as they try to just sort of either manage their gambling habit or to, get ahead in the game. And it's just like a great slice of life for these guys. And it's about like buddy friendship. It's really it's a great movie, and it's one of my favorites of his now.
I mean, Altman, and there's a bunch of Altman movies that I really liked. Like Long Goodbye was great.
That's
McCabe and
still
Mrs.
my
Miller.
favorite.
McCabe and Mrs. Miller.
That's probably close second. This is not necessarily like that. It's not as like much of a genre riff, although I guess you could call it the gambling movie genre. It's just more just, this feels more closer to the Cassavetes kind of like Husbands thing.
That sounds like that.
Yeah. But it's, it's got a sense of humor. It's got, again, the thing about Altman is the way he composes his scenes. You're competing for focus. It's not really telling you exactly where to look. You got to pick up stuff that's going by. So that one's, I think, again, for you. Also, given the mustache you're wearing, the 70s feels like right in your wheelhouse right now. So I would say go for that if you can. Although I don't think that Elliot Gould has the mustache in this one, but you bring your own and it's probably just as good.
Right. All right. Well, Film Guy Matthew, you certainly have given us a lot of stuff to watch and think about. And as always, I have 100% confidence in your picks. And, much less confidence that I will actually get to watch them. But other people.
That's fine. We're providing a service. Yep.
Stay safe. Say hi to Mary. Hopefully we could maybe get together soon in real life, a drink or something to that effect.
It's got a real next year in Israel feel to it, but thank you for that.
Hope springs eternal.
Indeed.
All right. Thank you, Film Guy Matthew. All right, folks.
Bye, Sam.
Bye, Matthew. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break, head to the fun half of the program. Matt, we have lost Brendan. Is that right?
Yeah, it appears as if you're unable to return once you've been removed by the host, and me accidentally removing him gave him an early exit today. So he's trying to maybe use a VPN.
Very, very, very convenient for him.
He owes me. He's certainly not just frantically trying to get back in for the next hour.
Hold on for
or
1
so.
second. Hello? Okay. Mila's telling me that Outer Banks is a TV show. Gilmore Girls is really good. Are you on my show right now? Sort of. I mean, you're interrupting it. Huh? I'm not on a break. I'm talking to Matt. Okay. Maybe another time, sweetie. Maybe next Friday. Next casual. Okay. All right. You got to shut the door. And it's whatever. Dad's just doing a show. I love you too. Dad's just doing a show. I can go in. It's not a big deal. Whatever. Whatever. At least we're not yelling at the top of our lungs today. Folks, just a reminder, it's your support that makes the show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. Again, a lot of people have had to step back during this era. If you're one of those people who don't have the financial stress, now would be a great time to join. Don't forget, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. They're shipping through this. I've been drinking Bike Fuel and Los Diosos and obviously the Majority Report blend. So check that out. And AM Quickie, still going strong, amquickie.com. Don't forget, check out TMBS. Who was on TMBS this week? Oh, I remember. It was Big Waz and Nando, right?
Yeah, we had a Woke Bros show, and it was really great. So check that out.
What is this Woke Bros? What does that mean?
Woke Bros is like Wando, Michael, and Waz do this. It's on their I forget if it's the Count the Dings network or something adjacent to that, but they it's like just they're a bunch of woke bros.
Okay, there you go.
Pretty self-explanatory.
You can check that out at the Michael Brooks Show on YouTube and TMBS, or I should say patreon.com/TMBS. Check out Nomaki Kant's show. You can find that on YouTube. I think it's Nomiki Kant's on YouTube, and it is the Nomaki Show on patreon.com. The Nomaki Show. And who did she have on? Was it John Nichols this week? I think maybe she may have. I think they talked for hours too. I mean, you should check it out. John Nichols is, I know he was on the program yesterday, but he's a wealth of information and always worth checking him out. Jamie, are you there?
She should be here.
Well, Matt, why don't you? Oh, there she is.
She is.
Whoa, Jamie, look at your backdrop. You've changed where your camera is.
Oh, yeah. I decided I'd swivel around a little bit, show off some of the things on my wall instead of my like galley kitchen hallway area.
Oh, I like this much better. And how's Jamie's volume?
It'll get better in about 20 seconds, I imagine, halfway through a pitch. It just takes time for the mic to warm up.
Weird. Okay.
Got a cold mic, folks.
There, now it's already better.
All right.
So, Jamie, what's on the Antifada this week?
Oh, well, this week on the Antifada, I had a pretty chill girls chat kind of episode with my friend Heather Fortune, great musician, formerly of the band Wax Idols. We talked about all sorts of things. Most importantly, the new Fiona Apple album, which we both agree is amazing. I kind of channeled some of your vibe on Casual Friday, Sam, where you're just kind of like catching up with a friend on the phone. So hopefully people will like that. I've been dealing with a lot of really heavy stuff lately. Not that Fiona Apple is not also very weighty, but it was fun. Also today, for patrons, we have a new episode of Prolit Cult, which is Andy's little side project on the paranormal, the parapolitical, and conspiracy theories. And this one is all about Space Force. Remember Space Force?
It's still out there.
Yeah, he does a little check-in on Space Force. I haven't listened to it yet, but I'm sure it's very good. Yeah. And this weekend, I hate to jinx stuff by talking about it before it happens, but it's on the schedule. It's happening. We're having on Winnie Wong from the Bernie Sanders campaign, so we'll see how that goes. I think she mostly wants to talk about aliens.
Aliens. Okay, fair enough. Matt.
At twitch.tv/literary hangover, I am playing Metro Exodus and listening to Yevgeny Zamyatin's 1920s novel We, which wasn't released in Russia, his native Russia, until 1988. It inspired Brave New World in 1984, so it's thematically interesting. So check that out. I think I'll be streaming tonight, folks.
All right, folks. Can't get over that's actually a show, what you do. You take a quick break. We'll be right back. Take some phone calls. 646-257-3920 is the number. We won't have time for many. Today would be my guess. Well, maybe we might not even take any calls. Well, yeah. All right. Yeah, we will. 646-257-3920, and we'll put on the IMs too. All right. See you in the fun half. Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous? You're a little bit upset? You're riled up?
Yeah. Maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude. You want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
That's a good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1 half. 5 eighths. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance, dance, dance.
Rand Paul.
I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
That guy might be a Nazi.
Agreed.
No.
Death to America.
You.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way. Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook. Throw our hands up.
Ooh.
Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me,
Hey, shut up.
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
all right, we are back. Hold on, bear with me, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. We have the call system set up. Let's just go to those calls for a moment. Calling from a 314 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, what's going on, Sam? This is Chris from Taiwan.
Chris from Taiwan. What's happening? What's on your mind today?
Well, you know, I decided to move back to the U.S. last fall, so that was great timing.
Good move.
They actually have this shit under control over there, and now here I am stuck in the U.S., but whatever.
What's on your mind?
So, okay, listen, I know you guys are sick of the whole do you or don't you vote for Joe Biden conversation.
Yes,
but I had a conversation with
understatement.
a friend the other day, and I think that I've maybe discovered a way of framing this that might help persuade people, disgruntled leftists who are on the fence. So, you know, you guys have said you shouldn't need an emotionally satisfying reason to vote this way or that way. Voting is an exercise of power, right? It should be weighed based on its material consequences. But I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who was sort of pissed off and on the fence. And I think I convinced him to vote for the Democrats just by telling him this, which is, you know, if the Democrats win, if Joe Biden wins the White House and if they win the Senate and hold the House and so on and so forth, then essentially what you're doing is you're removing Donald Trump and the GOP as an excuse for liberals and centrists or whatever you want to call them. So in other words, next year, if Democrats are in complete control and people are still, they still can't pay their rent, people are still dying, there's still an economic depression, where are they going to turn to cast their blame? And when I said that to my friend, he said, yeah, that's a good point. If they have to turn and cast their blame to the Democratic Party, well, that's like a much more preferable scenario. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, this is the argument that I have been making for a long time, that if you are interested in policies to the left of where the Democratic, like the center of the Democratic Party is, let's say, or wherever the power of the Democratic Party is, if you're interested in policies to the left of that, from throughout that spectrum to the left, you are better off as a foil having a Democrat than a Republican in the presidency. I mean, I argued this, that Clinton would be a much better foil than Donald Trump, because your problem with them, it makes it very, very clear where the lines are and what the issues are. And there is no but we're facing this amount of, you're rearranging the chairs on the Titanic. Well, no, when the Titanic is not going down the tubes, or there isn't this sense that the Titanic is going down the tubes, what we're really doing is actually we're making the Titanic more seaworthy, and we're dealing with it.
Yeah, and just again, if you need an emotionally satisfying sort of outcome, isn't it more emotionally satisfying to see, the sort of structural problems being blamed on the Democrats instead?
Well, what happens, it's not a question of the structural problems being blamed on the Democrats. What becomes clear is that there are structural problems, as opposed to, how much has Donald Trump been blamed for? That, yes, he has exacerbated without a doubt, but existed before he came into office. I mean, and so I've always contended that the left has, and in fact, you can see this. The problem is you could see this in the context of this, this era, when the left pushes against neoliberalism in the Democratic Party. There's no, it's like pushing against a string on some level, because because the Republicans control everything, you can't get any traction for that. And so, yes, I think that's a good argument, but appreciate the call.
Can I say one more thing real quick?
Yeah.
Just with regard to how we sort of leftists talk to one another about this, I think it's important that we all keep in mind that we were all really hoping that we weren't going to have this conversation for 6 months, and we donated and we volunteered and we advocated, trying to make sure that we would have a, more substantive, more hopeful, and frankly, more interesting conversation leading up to the election in November. And so I just think we should all, no matter where we come down on this question, I think we should all really keep in mind that none of us wanted to have this conversation in the first place. And we're all really frustrated and we're all really pissed off. And we should just have, empathy for one another in that regard, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Appreciate the call, Chris.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Take care.
Well
Bye.
I'm not going to reignite the arguments we've had about this, because this is not the hill I want to die on. It's not the most important issue to me. But I can also see a scenario where, say, the Democrats are the ruling party and they're in charge of administering austerity during this global crisis. Where, I mean, Sean and Matt talked about it on History as a Weapon. It seems possible that the Republican Party could realign into some sort of traditional more kind of like Herrenvolk social democracy, like European fascist party. This wouldn't happen from the top down. It would have to be like a real popular movement in a way that it has not been before in that party and in this country. Just like a fun what if to think about.
I mean, it's theoretically possible, but I just my sense is that no. Like so much of what we see on the right is fueled by big money. That I just don't think that in the context of our, I think it's unlikely.
Yeah, no, I mean, most of the populism that we have seen from the Republican Party has been purely in the cultural sphere, right? Because that's what right-wing populism does. It transmutes any kind of like economic populism and subsumes it in the cultural sphere where it doesn't make a difference.
That is a great transition. We have someone on the phone, I believe, who is I think a perfect example of what you've just discussed, Jamie, which is, politics is their populism is very much, I think, based in sort of a cultural war. Now, is this Garrett?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. Now, it's Garrett. Let me just introduce you.
So I'm Costco Kevin. We're not going to divulge my name on the air.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I'm getting a lot of harassment coming my way.
Okay. We will we won't say anything else. But this is the guy. Do we have a picture of him? Do we have your permission to use this picture without getting hit with a copyright strike?
Yeah, it wouldn't come from me. I mean, there's YouTube wars on content all day long, but you got my personal permission.
Right. But you did
out there.
You did put your video up and basically sign up with a company that takes its rights and then collects, all the usage fees across YouTube. Okay. Because we got hit with a copyright violation subsequent to your video, but you took the video. That's what you do, because now when you went into Costco, just to remind everybody, you're the guy, and you said you're the guy who came in, refused to wear a mask, and Costco Tyson actually said, get out of the store, and you told him that you were going to show your 3,000 Instagram viewers. I imagine you have more Instagram viewers now, don't you?
So that's a good question. So my personal Instagram and my business Instagram that were initially linked to that via Reddit, yeah, I did pick up an uptick in followers on those. Mm-hmm. But I've started a new personality online with Costco Kevin to try to divert some of that attention over there and away from my personal profiles, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. You're trying to monetize this now, but that's not the reason why you acted like such a jerk in Costco, right? I mean, you just came up with the idea of like, hey, I can make some cash on this, and I'm all for that. Make the cash on your social media.
I'll happily discuss that. So I actually didn't really have much knowledge about like content licensing and media and videos and how that stuff works. I was actually reached out to by a representative at Storyful, and then she kind of gave me the download. Hey, you can make money off this video, and you're doing the same thing. You're making money off your subscribers and your ad revenue from YouTube.
Absolutely.
And the media with their pharmaceutical companies, pumping them with big bucks, and then I get attacked because somebody calls me and says, hey, you can get a small piece of this pie.
Oh, no, I'm not attacking you for that. I'm not attacking you for that.
If I'm like part of a globally trending story,
no,
I would almost be an idiot if I didn't find a way to capitalize on
Absolutely. Or you could still capitalize on that and also be an idiot. Both those things can exist. They're not mutually exclusive.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. But, let me bring it back a little bit.
Let's get into, hold on. Excuse me, Costco Kevin. Let's get to the hub of it. I mean, I like I say, I don't begrudge you for monetizing this. There was a couple of things that stood out. One was that you thought you were leveraging your 3,000 Instagram followers in some way, that you wanted to intimidate Costco Tyson about that. But let's get to the nub of it. Why are you refusing, when you go into the store, to wear a mask when it's the policy of the store that you need to. And it may be, I'm not sure what state you're in, maybe the policy, it may be actually the law of the state.
Okay, so it's not the law of the state. And that's one thing I have a huge problem with, is how recommendations slowly become enforced laws. Because, you know, if I'm being told to do something, I don't want to be made to do something. I don't want to turn from a recommendation to, oh, you can face jail time or whatever. There's a couple cities in Colorado that are implementing some of those practices, I think with very loose actual regulation on it, because I don't know if they would think that it would actually hold up in front of a jury. Hey, this guy wasn't wearing a mask, you know, outside of, you know, this law that was never voted into legislation. So I think it'd be hard to set that legal precedent without there being a much more monumental case to provide that precedent. Does that make sense?
No, I mean, not really. But let me ask you this. So can you give me an example of when you have a situation where anybody has been cited by governmental authorities, municipal, county, state, based upon a recommendation that isn't a law or a regulation, like one that's issued by, let's say, the health department? I mean, is there any instance that you can point to where just a recommendation has led to someone being cited or arrested or something like that?
I mean, not that I could think of as a recommendation, but what cities are doing is they have the right to make city ordinances. So it doesn't exactly have to go through like a process. They can just kind of write in a city ordinance. So
correct,
cities can much more easily make an ordinance. So if there was a city ordinance, right, then that would be maybe more applicable to the situation. Or for instance, like in Colorado, there'll be signs that say no open carry, right? Do not bring a gun into the establishment. But there's a law to back that up. So if you bring that weapon into the establishment, then you're violating, you know, this law, this section, whatever.
What if there?
And then they can call the police on you.
What
and
if
then you
there's
can face
right? What
charges.
if there is a law that says if the Department of Health determines that there is an emergency, or if the Department of Health determines that a restaurant, let's say, has violated health regulations, or is just simply what, you know, they're doing something that we hadn't contemplated, but that the health department determines is problematic in terms of people's health who goes in there, does the health department have the ability to, let's say, shut down that store or order them to fix things?
So I would say that on a case-by-case basis, if they can attribute an outbreak of salmonella or typhoid fever or food poisoning, right, that came from a specific restaurant, and they can back that up, then I would say, yeah, if they're like, hey, there was a coronavirus outbreak that was associated with Phil's Tacos down the street, we're shutting them down, we're finding them, right? What I think a lot of people on my side of the aisle don't agree with is that we just completely, just indiscriminately just shut down every single small business, every single small restaurant, with only the majority of just big chains operating. And I would say the more logical and fair approach would be to selectively shut down businesses and to selectively enforce it based off if they can find an outbreak they can attribute to that source. Does that make sense? Then I would be
no, it
like
doesn't,
they had a
because
Walmart
I'll tell you why it doesn't make sense. Because then you will just be shutting down places where there was an outbreak, not where there might be one in the future. In other words, if you're dealing with a pandemic, it's one thing if there is a single source of let's say a foodborne illness, right? The food coming out of the kitchen at Al's food place is giving people salmonella. But what if it's the customers who are coming in, who leave that place and are going out into the world to other places?
So there was a new study that just came out that they say that now it seems very unlikely that coronavirus is spreading through surfaces. And then there's other studies that say coronavirus.
The CDC has determined that
by the eyeball. I'm sorry?
Yeah, CDC has put that out. But
so here's what I'm saying is we're taking all of these drastic measures. And I understand that fear is a giant proponent behind this, because things that are unknown are very scary. But, we're making very big life and country altering decisions based off science that's been a little shoddy, science that seems just to be changing, research that hasn't been done, clinical trials that haven't been even set in motion. We're trying to rush vaccines that should take years to develop. We're trying
Correct.
to, there's a lot of unprecedented things happening. And I think that, we need to approach this more rationally and more calmly instead of from a position of fear.
Okay. So in your world, the way you deal with a pandemic, which has taken tens of thousands of lives around the world, hits this country, and even with the protections we have taken, has taken 100,000 lives in the course of 8 weeks. Your approach would be, let's not do anything that what? Like, what would you, if you have the opportunity on March 1st, you have this information, they've had to shut down Italy. All the scientists are saying, all the epidemiologists are saying, this is the pandemic that we have been warning about. And there's reason to believe that, we can't know everything about the coronavirus. It's new. We don't know exactly, we don't know why there are spikes after the 1918 flu. I don't think there's an epidemiologist out there who will tell you that they know why, even now, why it spiked, and the second spike 6 months later was even worse. They can't tell you that for assuredness. You have this information. You are the president of the country, or maybe you're the, I don't know, whatever, the chief health inspector, whatever it is you want, whatever position you want that you think, what should we have done at that time?
Groups of people gathered together and discussed this very same topic that two people like you and I who are not in that loop, and they have far more information than we have, whether it's on the good side or the bad side. This is a question that colleges are going to ponder. I mean, that's a very academic level question. I appreciate it.
Well, it's not an academic question at all.
I'm going to say
it's not an academic question at all. It's specifically, you're saying that the course of action that the medical professionals have recommended, that the state authorities and municipal authorities have followed, is wrong. And so I'm asking you, based upon your ability to assess that their reaction was wrong, what would have been the right one?
So here, let's say I'm President Trump, right? I've got all these forces tugging on me in the White House. All these people saying, hey, the economy jobs over here. All these people saying, hey, we have massive life loss over here. We need to be careful. You can't just, appease only one side. You have to work with both sides in the democracy, So I think as a compromise, and I'm looking back, I'm not in the hot seat, but looking back, I would say if the shutdown was really the only way to do it, it probably just should have been maybe a much stricter 2-week only shutdown and not have us 2 months into a 2-week quarantine where they just keep pushing the timeline back. People are getting uneasy. They don't know when their lives are going to go back to normal. The media, you have to admit, the media is just constantly.
Well, wait a second. We're not, listen, wait, listen. Let's not change the topic here. We're talking about, you went into a store now, and we haven't even gotten to the fact that a store has the ability to create its own, policies in that regard. And we can get to that in a moment. But you're just saying that you think a 2-week shutdown, and what would have happened from an epidemiological perspective? What would have happened with a 2-week shutdown? What would that have done? Because a virus is not a political question in terms of whether it exists or doesn't exist. You can't compromise with a virus, right? So what would the 2 weeks have done in your estimation?
So that 2-week period is kind of that gestation period. You're supposed to sit back in quarantine to determine if you're developing symptoms or if you're asymptomatic. You're still at home anyways to avoid your exposure to people. At a certain point, you or I, if we would have already felt sick or been asymptomatic, we would have been clear from those non-symptoms, or we would have cleared up. Or maybe if we were over 78 years old and had 3 existing comorbidities, we would have passed away. So that's my thing. Like, how long do we have to quarantine for, stay inside for? We've already been locked down, socially distancing. They've already shut all the theaters down, all of the big sports venues, restaurants. I mean, we've been staying away from each other. And no doubt do I have, I'm under the impression that has helped to flatten the curve. But we don't need to flatten the economy in an attempt to just endlessly flatten the curve. One thing that we're going to have to take into account is coronavirus. Now that it's been released into the natural environment from the Wuhan virology lab with study funding,
it's not
given by
it's not
the
it's
National
let me
Institute
just
of
stop you
Health.
there for a second. Let me just stop you there.
out.
Hey, Costco, Larry, whatever your name is. Let me just stop you there. There is no agency in the U.S. government, including Trump's, that now claims it was released from a lab. I just want to be clear.
Yeah, in a way to, like, as a geopolitical ploy to not cause a larger ramp up.
I know in your
economic,
mind,
biological, psychological.
I know in
warfare
your
with
mind
China.
that you
We
have a
to
narrative
de-escalate
about
that
this,
situation.
but you're going to have to cite an authority other than your speculation if you're going to say that.
Yeah, I mean, you can look it up. The National Institute of Health. Fauci's the one that literally had to move his research offshore to continue that research of gain-of-function technologies. We don't need to be experimenting with gain-of-function with viruses that don't exist, and then we bring them into existence so we can figure out how to create a vaccine for them. We know it didn't come from bats. We know it didn't come from wet markets.
No, we do.
Wuhan.
No, in fact, no. You're 100%. Now you're just spewing your conspiracy theories, and unless you have a specific citation, let's move on. Let's move on to something else. I have. I can assure you, I have. And so let's move on to just off of your pure speculation.
Back to Costco and the policy, right?
Yes.
Why did I walk into Costco knowing there's like some sign on the door that can be any goofy rule? Hey, you got to hop on one foot. Hey, we got to stick a finger in your butt. Hey, you got to do this before you enter. So
no shoes, no shirt. Do you have a problem with no shoes, no shirt, no service? Does that bother you too?
If I walk around with shoes, like, I'm kind of hurting my feet. If I don't walk around with a shirt, like, I'm getting a sunburn or whatever. This isn't like,
But if you're indoors, you're not going to get a sunburn. If you're indoors, you're not going to get a sunburn. So you could theoretically, why not just walk up to those Costco doors, take your shirt off, walk in?
Sure, why not walk in wearing a helmet either? This is like besides the point. The point is...
No, but the point is...
Costco's a special situation. Let me just explain. Please just give me the 30 seconds.
Sure.
I signed a membership contract with Costco. You don't even sign. Like, I pay to be there, right? But some people say that makes it a privilege or whatever. I say I have more of a right to be there than somebody else that just walked in off the street because I pay for a membership. Upon paying for that membership, I signed a contract where I agreed to terms and conditions that were within that contract, which you don't do when you walk into a small business or a Walmart.
Correct.
You don't sign a form to agree to terms and conditions. There was no term and condition in that contract stating that I have to wear a mask. Therefore, people will send me messages saying, well, they say in the contract that the terms and conditions are subject to change on short notice, to which I argue that voids the validity of a contract if you can just retroactively change any term of the contract at will for any reason. You don't want to buy a car for $25,000, $500 a month, and they come back and say, hey, you know what? We retroactively changed the terms of your contract. It's now $30,000, and you're paying us $750 a month. So my approach would be to say, Costco, you need to upgrade your user membership and either need to do an email blast and get people to DocuSign to these new retroactive policies that people don't agree with and are controversial. We could sign in store, or you could send us a letter in the mail where we sign and we agree. I'm a member, and, an HOA, anything else, it's not like it still has processes to run through. The people still have to vote. They still have to agree on it. I understand it's a quote unquote private company. They're publicly traded. They're in the public domain, and they're one of the only main stores in my area I can go to because everything else is closed. So they're like, why don't you go somewhere else? And it's like, let's open that somewhere else, and I will vote with my dollars because we need to support small business right now, not Costco.
Well,
that's my
Costco
take.
Chad.
I'm glad
Upgrade
you've
the user contract.
I'm glad you've come to that realization that you should support the smaller businesses at this moment. But I think you have every right, and I think you have a legal argument as to getting your membership refunded at this point because you don't like the institution of new policies. I think that makes sense. But you signed a contract, you paid for the membership. They have the ability to change their policies, and that's what you agreed to. Like I say, I think that warrants your being able to get a refund. But the idea that you can go in there and expose everybody else, I mean, you understand the dynamic with the masks, right? Like you walked in there.
Yeah, they don't.
You said,
they don't work.
Excuse me.
They're not.
Hold on for
FDA
1
approved.
second.
They're saying,
Excuse
just
me.
Cover your
Excuse
face with a cloth,
Excuse
with
me.
a scarf.
Excuse
just
me.
find something to cover
Excuse
your
me.
face with. The
Excuse me.
virus passes right through that.
Excuse me. You understand the dynamic with the mask, right? It's that your mask is to keep you from broadcasting if you are asymptomatic to other people in the store. And it is true.
I've had 2 months to determine that I am asymptomatic. Okay, like
how do you
I've
know that
already
you're
been-
asymptomatic as of yesterday?
You've been going out to
I've been
Costco.
socially isolated. I've already been socially isolated.
Well,
So-
but they, first of all, they don't know that. But are you telling me that the first time you left your house was to go to Costco?
No.
Okay,
no,
are
no,
you
no.
telling
I've been,
me
like,
that the
out
first
at the
contact
grocery
you
store,
had with
but-
people was before you went into Costco?
You're welcome.
Who's
I'm
that?
sorry, would you please repeat
How are you
that question?
talking to somebody?
Are you in Costco right now?
No, but my point is that you don't know. The whole point of being, the whole problem with being asymptomatic is that you don't know if you've contracted it. And so it is.
And it would be unfair to assume that I did.
It's not. That's exactly it. Nobody's assuming. That's why everybody is required to wear a mask, because they're not assuming any individual has it. They're assuming that in a store of however many people are in there, statistically speaking, the odds are it is more than unlikely that one person has it in there. We don't know who that person is. So we're requiring everybody. We're being completely non-discriminating about it. Everybody has to wear the mask.
Yeah. Your
And
rights
that's where I kind of draw the line. And that's where I say this isn't about the mask. It's about control. And what a perfect way to make that point than to go hit some of the people enforcing this and say, hey, this is ridiculous. We've been in this for 2 months. There's no end in sight. You know, we do live in a free country, and I'm tired of living in fear. What the media told us, the same people that are telling us.
Well, what are you so afraid about that you can't go? Then why? Listen, why?
These are the hold on 1 second. Sorry to interrupt. These are the same news media sources that told us Donald Trump had a less than 10% chance of winning the 2016 election. The same people that say that Joe Biden, by the numbers, is the Democratic frontrunner for the Democratic Party. The people telling us this information are telling us the coronavirus numbers. The same people telling us the ice caps are going to be melted by 2010, you know, and earlier.
They are melting.
To their models.
They are melting. The ice caps are melting.
There's been record ice cap growth. Polar bear populations are totally strong. You know, and then if you think about all the sea ice, okay.
So do you not
ocean
think
levels,
that 95,000 people have died of COVID in this country?
What was that?
Do you disagree with the idea that 95,000 people have died of COVID in this country?
Thank you. That's a really excellent question. I'm glad we get to touch upon that, because you can look at the CDC or even state, municipality, local governments. They are doing number enhancement. That's the term. If you type in COVID death enhancement, they're classifying all deaths. The word is among people with coronavirus as coronavirus deaths.
So you
what
think
happens
it's
is when the state reports the death, and if they test positive for coronavirus at the time of death, whether they died of alcoholism, like a man here in Colorado County had almost twice the lethal, not legal, lethal limit of alcohol in his system. He was a 0.5, a 0.3 can kill you.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
not a 0.03,
so let me just
right?
let me
They
just
classified his death as coronavirus.
I understand what you're saying.
So those
I understand
numbers
what
are
you're saying.
inflated.
I understand
in my
what you're saying.
state by
Now,
25%.
So if I was to say to you, year over year deaths in this municipality are X, and now they are, X plus 2,000 year over year deaths in terms of this month, let's say that, and this person had COVID, these 2,000 had COVID, but you just think it's a coincidence that they had COVID, that they represent a year over year increase in deaths. You just think it's a coincidence they had something else fatal.
Well, let me tell you this. There's no year over year data first and foremost, because it was not introduced into the environment until earlier this year.
No, not year over year on coronavirus. Every year, every year, every city says in the month of March, we had 300 people die. And in the month of March in 2019, we had 300 people die. In the month of March in 2018, we had 275 die. In the month of March of 2016, we had 325 die. And then all of a sudden, the month of March in 2020 comes and they have 1,300 die. 1,000 of them had been diagnosed with COVID. But you think it's also a coincidence that they didn't die of COVID, that they actually died of something else. And it was just a coincidence that they had COVID too, and they're being counted as COVID deaths. I just want to be clear on what you're arguing.
We have to understand that, the local governors are stressing that they're working on getting more accurate tests because there's a lot of false positives being triggered. There's also other members of the coronavirus family that can exist within us that aren't COVID-19 at all. So there's other triggering things.
What accounts for the extra deaths that we're seeing in the country? Do you think?
What was that?
What accounts for the extra deaths that we're seeing in the country?
Well, here's the deal. If you look at those extra coronavirus deaths, notice how deaths in other categories have been falling. If you look at certain like CDC and Health Institute records, like heart attacks and strokes and car accidents and these other things are dying.
Do you think car accidents might
these other numbers are falling.
Do you think car accidents might drop because people are driving less?
Absolutely, but also they look it up, man. They are literally reclassifying people's deaths, even if they're dying in car accidents. They're doing whatever they can to inflate the numbers. So I think
who is they? The CDC.
So hold on,
who? I want to know who the they is. I want to know who the they is in your assessment that they are inflating the numbers. Who's the they?
So it is actually the state bilaterally with the CDC. So what happens is
right.
Like
okay. So let me just be clear.
Your local medical
let me just be clear. No, I understand.
Okay,
I understand.
Okay.
I understand. Okay. I just want to be clear on the assessment that the argument that you're making here. So you're saying that the CDC appointed by Donald Trump, the head of the CDC appointed by Donald Trump, who I think we can both agree that Donald Trump has a real vested interest in making sure that the numbers of deaths are lower. You're saying that CDC has gone rogue to conspire with the governors in all these states. And this is a little risky for them, right? For the CDC, because they don't necessarily, maybe they have pre-existing relationships and they all planned that we're going to introduce this thing. We have counterparts in every other country in the world. And we're going to pretend that this is happening. And why are they doing this? What is the motivation for this?
Well, the motivation is to ultimately implement the tenets of socialism. Like if you think about the Green New Deal, look at all of the objectives that are being reached by the far left. In the Green New Deal, they want to eliminate airplane travel. Right. Look what happened. They want to stop us from eating meat. It's the end of meat. The end of meat is here. Well, guess what? We have meat production shortages. They're slaughtering animals in the masses because there's nowhere for them to go. We've reduced carbon emissions because we're not traveling in vehicles as much. People are starting to get a universal basic income, right?
Right.
So
just to be clear, they're not actually, they've gotten a couple of stimulus checks, but they haven't gotten a universal basic income. George W. Bush did the same.
It's like a sample.
George Bush did the same thing. Right. So let me just I want to be clear because I find this fascinating. And I think we're on what Jamie is on. And if this was happening, I'm a little bit annoyed that she didn't let me in on this, because she certainly probably, I would imagine one of her meetings would have heard about this. But so if I have what you're saying, if I understand what you're saying, it is the socialist left that has conspired to get the CDC in the Trump administration to conspire with governors around the country, obviously setting up the existence of the Wuhan virus that they got released by Fauci from a laboratory. They knew it would travel around. They had done tests on this. This could be at least a pretend pandemic. They spread it around.
They call it a scamdemic or a plandemic.
Scandemic or a plandemic. I understand. And so it travels around the world. Now, do you think the stuff in Italy actually happened, or was that part of the socialist program, or maybe it didn't even happen and we just saw that from the socialist media?
Well, you know, when the communists, when the USSR fell,
right?
You know, that war never stopped. I mean, those people filtered back into society.
Right. They went back down to
they're
Italy.
right up against communism and socialist forces to this day. So we would be ignorant to assume that there wasn't still these very strong tendencies leaning towards socialism. We see it. We see the nationalist uprising. And, you know, before this happened, there were protests all over the world, especially in Hong Kong.
Right.
And, man, does that play well to China's interest when the protests in Hong Kong have been silent?
We just for my audience, just make it clear. How did China fake this whole thing in northern Italy, too?
So they didn't fake the whole thing in northern Italy. Let me take it one step further, okay? It's not just like the CDC and like, you know, China went to the CDC. So it's the World Health Organization that works in combine with China. As you see, Trump just recently sent a letter to the World Health Organization pretty much saying, if you do not restructure the World Health Organization, I'm going to permanently take away your funding because you are acting on the interest
let me
of
ask
them.
you this question.
We pay over 10 times the amount of money to the World Health Organization, receive zero advocacy. We have the feeling that they knew about the Wuhan coronavirus before it started spreading beyond China. China was trying to keep it under wraps, right? But then it kind of exploded. As for Italy,
hold on for
we know a very large portion of Italy is very elderly. They're like 80 up. So they have multi-generational living in Italy. We're like,
no, but wait a second. Wait. You're telling me this is a socialist plot, but it does actually kill elderly people. And
absolutely does.
I see. So the socialist plot was
ignorant. It's a real virus. I'm not saying, some people are out there saying the thing doesn't exist.
Oh, I see. I see.
Like, I'll still wash my hands after coming back home from Costco, but I'm not like living and shriveling in fear. I'm just being like,
that sounds a little wimpy to me, buddy. But
sounds a little wimpy, but you know what? I would be an ignorant fool just to say, hey, the thing doesn't exist. I'm going based off the research from, you know, what I've been able to gather.
What research are you going after? What research have you been? What research that tells you should wash your hands?
Read between the lines. You know, read between the lines.
Is that a website?
A lot of these institutions function off half-truths, which is how they gain their credibility. They got it. They can't just BS.
But how do you know that you have the right half-truth? Let me ask you this. How do you know that you have the right half-truth? Maybe the half-truth is you wear the mask, and the lie is you wash your hands.
Maybe it is. But
dude, what if that's the real truth?
Understood. And what if that is the thing that people are still debating today? These experts that shut everything down and are causing untold suffering in the third world because the global economy ground to a halt, and the World Health Organization and the IM, the International Monetary Fund.
Now, so listen, if this is fake,
3 million people in the third world are at risk of extreme poverty and starvation, and are already beginning to die of starvation because of the severe economic consequences.
Will you tell me about your advocacy for third world poverty that existed prior to coronavirus?
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit. Could you please repeat that?
Can you tell me, just let everybody know the work that you've been doing on third world poverty issues prior to coronavirus, because I think that's important to give you your argument credibility.
The work I've been doing, man, I'm one of the only people I know advocating for the third world. We're over here saying, 90,000 people are dead, and inflated numbers, which I think that number is about 60,000 maximum. But, you know, not many people are over here saying, hey, what effects is this having on the third world?
No, but I meant before the coronavirus. Was it the coronavirus that opened your eyes to what was going on in the third world?
No, I've always known what was going on in the third world, and it's a problem that even with the advent of GMOs, where they said we'll be able to feed the world with GMOs, we can grow bigger crops and more bountiful yields, and they promised they were going to end global starvation. But the deal is they always have to have an underdeveloped underclass of society that'll do the dregs of work that the more privileged people in the first world societies aren't willing to do.
Kevin, what give us a sense of what your main news sources are.
Well, here, I'll read to you something from Fox 31 News, KDVR, and they're
wait, I'm sorry. Wait,
what?
Wait. No.
Liberal.
I don't want you to read me any of the news stories. I'm just.
Well, here,
what is the name of the website? Wait. What's the name of the website?
Fox 31 News, KDVR.
Oh,
Denver's
Fox
main
31 News. I see. Okay.
Yeah, they're like the main news source in Denver. That's like one of my go-tos. In fact, I visit CNN like 10 times a day. Not because I believe them. It's kind of like I'm monitoring them.
Right. No, it's
like,
good.
oh, what are they coming up with next? What are they saying next?
Absolutely crazy.
You know?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is crazy that I have an alternative viewpoint, but yet I view in so frequently to people who I disagree with, because you got to understand that for me to be able to argue my point with you, I need to be able to argue your point better. Yeah. And until I was about 23, I was a very far left-leaning liberal. I grew up in Boulder, Colorado. I know everything. I used to be anti-gun, pro-abortion, every single thing. I would have been for the UBI if I even knew that existed. Global warming, everything. My opinions changed over time, not because I got brainwashed, but just because sometimes your opinions change. Sometimes, so like I completely like empathize and sympathize.
Well, tell me, I'm curious. I'm curious, Costco Kevin. When did was it Fox 31 KDVR that opened your eyes? I mean, when was that moment where you realized all this stuff was where this was headed, where the socialist left was taking over and using coronavirus as a way of rolling in socialist programs?
I think when you have like a certain way of thinking politically, like you don't require instruction anymore or somebody else's opinion. I think that opinion forms automatically.
Well, no, but the facts.
Principles you believe.
What about the facts? Like, where are you getting the facts to undergird this opinion? From most.
Man, I have to unfortunately say that due to the polarization of this country, there's two sets of facts in this country. Unfortunately, one set of facts will be rejected by one side. One set of facts will be rejected by another. So even if I told you sources of facts, like let's say, like, man, I listen to all these extremely educated people on the InfoWars platform, or like David Knight, right?
InfoWars
just
platform.
Very eloquently spoken. Look up David Knight. He is great. He can really speak well.
What
I
else?
listen to Ron Paul. I listen to Rand Paul.
Rand Paul.
I think Donald Trump needs to read the Constitution. See, I'm not a Republican.
Right.
People are like, oh, he's a redneck Republican. How am I a redneck Republican? I live in Colorado. I used to be a liberal. I don't have a farm truck. I listen to rap music.
Okay. So let me ask you this. So who do you think is behind this? Who's behind this socialist cabal? I'm just curious. Let's get to the nub of the thing.
Man, I mean, the powers that be have really growing. I mean, it's most of the leaders in Europe. It's Trudeau up north in Canada. It's Bernie Sanders in America. It's AOC. It's people that are in all of these global organizations that,
let me ask you this. Why is Bernie Sanders not president? If they're able to pull these levers, why isn't Bernie Sanders president? Why did he lose to Joe Biden?
There's dirt that they have on people that we'll never know. And I'm upset with Bernie because, he didn't stand up against Hillary when she rigged the election against him and stole his electoral votes and did this and that. And he should have done like what Trump did. And if he would have stood up like Trump did, Bernie Sanders would have been president. And I have no doubt that if there wasn't social distancing in place and there could be rallies, Bernie and Trump would be holding rallies, and Bernie would be the number one candidate, not a guy that touches children and can't put a sentence together. Bernie is the populist of the left. He's the only personality. He's the only likable one. And I hate to say it, he's one of the more common sense people on the far left, even though I completely disagree with what he says. I can understand what he says.
Even though
I
he
don't
is
know
he
why,
is
if it's the
undoubtedly part of this
military-industrial
ruling
complex.
cabal that you said, this part of this ruling cabal that has basically perpetrated this whole coronavirus fraud.
So there's like the globalist agenda that's at hand, right? It's like the military-industrial complex, the United States imperialism, and there's
Bernie's
like
working with the
fighting, and some of
globalist
these people are
military-industrial
trying to-
complex as part
What
of
was
the. So just do you understand? Bernie is working with the global military-industrial complex.
No. People like Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden that's who they want. So they're putting up Joe Biden now, who can't speak. You agree with me that he has trouble formulating a basic sentence, right?
I mean, I don't think he's the most adept. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So that being said, I believe that they're going to use that same premise, like, oh, Trump isn't fit for president. When it gets a little bit further down the road, they're going to start saying that Joe Biden isn't fit for president, and we have to shoehorn in somebody else, a lady that's been really quietly waiting in the wings, a lady that got recent facial surgery. She looks different now. Her name's Hillary Clinton. She's waiting in the wings, and whether that's she becomes his VP, and then they what is it, the 25th Amendment, where they can oust you for not being fit for president. They oust him. You're not mentally fit. You can't make a competent decision. Vice President Hillary, you become the president.
Boom.
Or at the very end, when all of the major candidates are knocked out of the game, they're going to say, man, you can't even debate. Like, they can't put him on a debate stage with 10 other candidates.
Okay. Well, listen, Costco Kevin, we're a little far afield. Jamie, I'm going to let Jamie have the last word here because I think we have.
Well, maybe she has a question for me. Maybe Jamie wants to ask me a question.
Few things. I don't know if you've been watching this show's coverage of the coronavirus, quote unquote, recovery, but if the goal was to implement socialism, we're doing a piss poor job. Let me tell you that much. Most of the money.
Behind schedule.
Huh?
You guys are behind schedule. You guys wanted this done a long time ago.
No, but I think what Jamie's saying is that if you look at what the Democrats just passed in the House, it involved things like subsidizing COBRA as opposed to Medicare for all or expanded Medicare. It involves things like paying money for lobbyists as opposed to, putting in automatic stabilizers to help the economy. In other words, it's as if we were really good at faking the whole coronavirus thing, but very bad at the legislative follow-up. But go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, so that doesn't really make sense to me. I mean, I've been vacillating during this whole thing between getting mad and just laughing because it's a little ridiculous. But like, I go for a walk in my neighborhood and I see makeshift morgues outside of the hospital made from refrigerated trucks, and they're full of bodies. Like, do you think those bodies are fake? Are those just dolls that they put in there to trick us?
Well, that's really funny you say that because one of the things that I'm against is the one-size-fits-all approach to handling the coronavirus. I understand. I already said that this is a real thing. It's really killing people, primarily people with comorbidities over the age of 78. So that
they don't matter,
there's hot spots, and those hot spots need to be handled regionally. So Wyoming shouldn't be underneath the same level of closures as New York City is, or maybe LA. Even
but who is making that determination? Who's making that determination?
Are people not allowed to travel between New York and Wyoming?
And who's making those determinations? It's the state authorities, isn't it?
Right. Well, because Donald Trump left it up to the authorities. He's like to the governors and mayors. He's like, fine, you guys handle it. States' rights. You guys want to do it. That's why the red states are
they're
further
determining
along with
what.
opening up
That's the
blue
very
states.
definition of one state, one size fits all. So what's your problem?
There's a lot of Democratic governors and mayors, and you have regulatory authorities over them, and there's a lot of other bureaucratic hampering and red tape going on. And we'd be fools if we didn't admit that a lot of this was political and still going on. And this is a battle to reopen this country. And people are like, we're reopening the country. And I'm like, listen, if we're phase 1 now and we're 2 months into a 2-week quarantine, when are we going to be fully open? 2022? Wow. The coronavirus is here to stay. It's in the environment. We need to learn to deal with it, to cope with it, but to live a life as
you know what people
without
say,
this
you know what
crazy
people,
medical tyranny
every person who has made that argument is wear masks, particularly indoors when you're in places where there's a lot of people. And you were the guy who refused to do it. I appreciate the call. I wish you good luck in your Instagram following and whatnot.
Wait, can I say one more thing?
Yeah, I already let him go, but you can finish it up.
Well, I mean, even if all of these things are true, right? Even if the coronavirus is an international communist conspiracy to, get a UBI or whatever, why would you take it out on the poor guy who has to work at Costco and deal with people like you and he can't leave? You called him a pussy bitch. I posit that if you're behaving this way towards a worker who is underpaid and stressed out, you, sir, are the pussy ass bitch.
Yeah.
That is a great way to end that. And
I'm ashamed you let him go before we could find out more about all the stay behind communists in Italy after the war. I think Gladio was communists was a pretty good take.
I was a little worried that he was going to give away the game, to be honest with you, and I didn't want that revealed. Well, that was definitely interesting. I should say he contacted us. I think he went around with everybody who played the video and contacted because he really wants to get the word out there. I mean, this is the thing is that like that guy could put together a sentence better than a lot of libertarians. Like he could certainly argue his point. It was based upon completely insane premises, but once he got the premise right, he could continue on with the argument, and there it is. But I think Jamie had the best point. Like it's all belied by the fact that he was picking on the one person who had no power in that situation, but was just simply doing what his bosses told him to do.
Well, Tyson is part of the globalist socialist cabal as well, I think. So.
Well, all right. But Costco Kevin didn't know that. We placed Costco Tyson there. In fact, maybe I'm saying too much. Costco Tyson is a clone. We have about 45 of these guys. We put them around all the Costcos. And Costco Tyson is a clone. People know that. He's going around. He's just getting...
destroying liberty.
We got an app right here where we control everything he says. And that's that. All right, this is interesting in light of that conversation we just had. Here is the Michigan AG. Do we have video? Do we have the ability to do video right now?
Yeah, we got video. I'm doing it.
Okay. Here's the Michigan AG. It's clip number 8. He's threatening Donald Trump. If Donald Trump refuses to wear a mask at the Ford plant, because factories are one of the most dangerous places you can be in. Meat processing plants and prisons, nursing homes. These are on the list. But here is Dana Nessel. Now, Donald Trump's been attacking this woman. I think our caller would have argued that this is she's a clear, globalist who's trying to get socialism in. But here it is.
If we've learned nothing over the last several years of President Trump in the White House, is that he doesn't have the same level of legal accountability as everybody else. But honestly, if he fails to wear a mask, he's going to be asked not to return to any enclosed facilities inside our state. And I know that Ford has asked him to do the same thing. But if we know that he's coming to our state and we know he's not going to follow the law, I think we're going to have to take action against any company or any facility that allows him inside those facilities and puts our workers at risk. We just simply can't afford it here in our state. If President Trump doesn't care about his own health, doesn't care about the health and the safety of people who work in those facilities, at least care about the economic situation of, costing these facilities so much money by having to close down and disinfect the plant after he leaves.
And ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump, I think our caller would be very upset because Donald Trump obviously was cucked here. Donald Trump ends up wearing a mask. We have an image of that, wearing a mask as he is touring the Ford facility. So good for him. Complied with that. There he is. I think from that angle, you can't tell just how much of his chin's unprotected there, but he's wearing a mask.
Well, to be fair, he has a lot of chins.
He's got a lot of chins. So good for him. He wore a mask, but he's still very sensitive to looking less than masculine. I guess when you wear a face mask, maybe if he wore a bandana, he could pretend like he was Jesse James or something. You know what I mean? Or Billy the Kid. He could be like a real macho guy. And but here he is explaining to everybody why he won't wear a mask on camera.
Mr. President, there was a lot of interest about whether you would end up wearing a mask today. Could you just take us through your thought process of why you decided not to wear a mask?
Well, I had one on before. I wore one in this back area, but I didn't want to give the press the pleasure of seeing it. But no, where I had it in the back area, I did put a mask on.
Did you have the goggles on too as well, sir?
I did. I had goggles and a mask right there.
But why would you not be?
And here's another one.
Why would you not be wearing it?
Because in this area,
why would you not be wearing it here, sir?
Not necessary here. Well, everybody's been tested, and I've been tested. In fact, I was tested this morning, so it's not necessary.
But the executive are wearing them.
Well, that's their choice. I was given a choice, and I had one on in an area where they preferred it, so I put it on, and it was very nice. It looked very nice, but they said not necessary here. Yeah, please.
What about the example that it would set for other Americans?
Well, I think it sets an example. I think it sets an example both ways, and as they say, I did have it on like this. Yeah, please.
So there it is. Donald Trump doesn't want to give the media the pleasure of him wearing a mask because it's not as macho. That's why I think like they should give him a presidential bandana and he can pretend like he's a cowboy, like a big cowboy bank robber.
I mean, does this remind you of like ever trying to get your son to wear something that he didn't want to wear?
Absolutely. This reminds me of every argument I have with my son that these days happens. It feels like every 90 minutes with just about anything. Clean up your Legos. Eat something green, just one bite. Yes, he's like a 7-year-old, except for in this instance, he's endangering the entire country. I mean, that's a slight difference. My son doesn't do that.
I mean, he's right, though. It does set an example both ways.
Now, where does that guy, the caller, the Costco Kevin or whatever that guy's name was, where does this guy get his information about, this is all junk science that we are involved in? That, now he says InfoWars and his local Fox affiliate.
I believe
that. It's also possible he's watching Tucker Carlson because Tucker Carlson is now trying to argue that there is no evidence the lockdown saved lives. Contrary to, look, there's no way you can't run an experiment, right? Because every city is different. If you have more subway exposure, but we do know that California locked down before New York, that San Francisco did, and they had less deaths. But here is Tucker Carlson explaining that there's absolutely no evidence. Well, that may be the case because I don't know how you could have evidence, but here it is.
Closing every business except grocery stores forces a lot of people into a small space. Is that a good idea? There are a lot of potential problems. We don't know all of the answers. Someday we'll have a better understanding of the science behind quarantines. We should have had it before we imposed them. But for now, here's what you need to know and what they're not going to tell you. There is, as of tonight, precisely no evidence that the lockdowns in America saved lives anywhere. In fact, it's possible that mass quarantines killed people.
Well, there's the evidence of like when cities locked down earlier, they saved more lives. But I guess, again, that's apples and oranges. There are computer simulations by people in Columbia University, critical, I guess, if you could interpret this, of Democratic administrations, right? State and the city, saying that had New York locked down 2 weeks earlier, something like 30,000 lives could have been saved. I mean, I guess if that's not evidence, like then there's no evidence that could exist. How would you prove this?
No, he wants us to create a tear in reality and travel to an alternate timeline where we didn't do any lockdowns, and then we'll really have some hard data for him.
That's right. But then we'd have to circle back around and do it, right?
It'd be a lot of work.
It's such a gross business proposition for these guys because their whole, like, what they're messaging is like, we don't want anybody who's going to be adversely affected by this. We're going to continue casting to the people who aren't and don't plan to be. And if this does affect you, you probably won't be like a follower of us after that, but we'll be good with the audience of very comfortable people that like have been insulated from all of the negative effects of what our broadcasting does.
I think that's right. I think the bet is I'm going to talk to all the people who paid money for fire insurance and their house didn't burn. And I'm going to say, like, there's no evidence that you were protected at all by that fire insurance. None whatsoever. That's the argument I think that they are relying on, that they're going to hit those people and the rest are going away. Again, so we just had this guy on, Costco Kevin or whatever it was, the guy who in Costco, he described
freedom fighter.
Himself, yeah, the freedom fighter, the guy who woke up in a free country that morning. Apparently didn't know you had to wear a mask in Costco, maybe. And we asked him where he gets his information about all these conspiracy theories that he has about Fauci releasing the thing as part of the leftist agenda to get all of these leftist policies that have been rolled in, apparently, that we've had. It's also, we couldn't get it on the execution part. Well, he said it was InfoWars, but let's just tune in to a so-called mainstream conservative outlet, the Daily Wire, and look at this guy, Michael Knowles, who is one of the stars, apparently, of the Daily Wire. See what he's saying.
What happened here is that the Democrats made a Faucian bargain. Like a Faucian bargain is where you make a deal with the devil, except that the devil is a petite man from Brooklyn. And I'm not calling Dr. Fauci the devil, but
pause
the
it for 1 second.
The Democrats,
can I just say, like, good for you for laughing at that joke, because that stuff was pretty funny. Listen to Knowles laugh at himself here, because this stuff is so funny. It's not like he's not reading it from teleprompter, but it's still so funny. It's so funny that, like, even the third or fourth time you read this thing, it's really funny.
Except that the devil is a petite man from Brooklyn. And I'm not calling Dr. Fauci the devil, but the deal that the Democrats made here is very much like a deal with the devil. A Faustian bargain, deal with the devil, is when you sell your soul for limitless knowledge and power. And a Faucian bargain is when you sell your credibility, which is your political soul, for limitless knowledge and limitless power over the citizens. And like a Faustian bargain doesn't turn out the way that you think it will. This is the trouble with deals with the devil, is you get to the end of the deal with the devil and you realize, oh no, I've made a terrible mistake. I don't actually have all the things that I wanted. It's the same thing with the Faucian bargain. Yeah, the Faucian bargain tells you, oh good, if we exploit this public concern over this virus that no one can see, if we generate mass hysteria, if we make people wear all sorts of crazy things and lock down the economy and stay home from work, and 40 million people are going to lose their jobs, and actually more people very likely are going to die because of these policies, and we're going to take old people and put them in nursing homes because we're so incompetent in the way that we implement this, but we're going to get a new normal. We're going to get the Green New Deal. We're going to get all those policies that we want. We're going to get socialist medicine. Oh, the things we've wanted for 100 years. That's the deal that they made. Now it's falling apart.
That guy, Michael Knowles, on this mainstream Daily Wire conservative channel, run by the cool kid Republican philosopher Ben Shapiro, sounded identical to the gentleman we had on earlier who was caught on camera on Costco, who gets his information from the wide array of InfoWars. They're the same. That's the conservative movement. that this is all a hoax. We don't like the reality of this virus. I think there's plenty of room to say we don't really know about the virus. We just know generally about pandemics. We know this is a new virus. And these are the protocols you follow to avoid mass death. We've already had almost 100,000 people die in less than 10 weeks. And that is with, everybody concedes we flatten the curve, which means that we flatten the infection rate, which means that we necessarily flattened the number of deaths, which means that we diminish them by staying at home, not to mention diminishing deaths that would have come second order because our health system would have been overrun. But this is what the conservative movement has become. There is no ideas. And where's the calls for people to police this? I mean, can you imagine, if this type of stuff was coming from, I don't know, shows that, were Ben Shapiro, that Joe Biden cited, the calls for him to distance himself or whatnot. I mean, there's none of this. It's just all it's all completely normal. We're just going to do a New York Times feature on these guys and not even mention that this is the garbage they're puking out.
Yeah, it would be like if Maoist Rebel News or something took over the liberal media.
Yeah.
Which, wouldn't be the worst thing, perhaps.
Lyndon LaRouche.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the reference. That right there. I mean, Anna Merlin's book on this topic is very good about how conspiracy theories have kind of taken over the Republican Party and just become more commonplace in general on all sides of the aisle politically, as people have felt more and more powerless in their lives, whether that feeling is legitimate or not.
Yeah, I mean, the more economic production is centralized, the more it actually is a conspiracy and not democratized, which is going to lead to people being conspiracy theorists. I think it's like a one-to-one relationship between, how power is centralized and how people are conspiracy theorists.
I think that's true. I think there's a lot of things that people have a difficult, idea how to respond to, and I think that makes them more susceptible to easier answers. I think a lot of those are politically disempowering. With that said, the conservative movement, as you can track in this country, look at the John Birch Society and what they were saying 75 years ago now. They are far more susceptible to these type of lunatic conspiracy theories than the left. It's not to say that there aren't conspiracies on the left, but it's just simply a fact in terms of depth, scope, range, and how far up but I give you the Senate nominee for the Republicans in Oregon. Her name is Jo Rae Perkins. We know that John Ratcliffe, who was today, I think it was yesterday, okayed by the Senate to be Donald Trump's director of national intelligence, was rejected 6 or 7 months ago because he basically inflated and lied about his resume in dealing with terrorism and intelligence stuff. We know that he is a big follower of QAnon accounts. Well, this is the next step. Here is the Republican nominee for Senate in Oregon. Her name is Jo Rae Perkins. This is via Alex Kaplan.
I think that there's probably a lot of us out there. I just happen to be bold enough to say, hey, I'm following Q because I want to know, because if the Q team is real, I want to know about it. If the Q team is not real and is fake, I want to know about it, because we have to be willing to look at both sides of the issues, and we can't be living with our heads in the sand and not paying attention to what's going on out there in the world and in our government. I think it's extremely important. So I think there's a lot more people that are running for political office that follow Q than are admitting to it.
Like that never socialism sign she's got in the backdrop of her video there.
I mean, unfortunately, it's probably true, that last thing she said.
What's that?
That a lot of people running for office follow Q, but just won't admit it.
I think that's the case. And this is what the Conservative Party is. This is why you get guys who come into Costco and they're like, I'm not wearing a mask. It's all about social control. Well, it's actually just about keeping people safe inside the Costco.
Can you imagine she wins somehow? I mean, it's Oregon, right? But in a hypothetical, she wins, what the Republican Party would have to do with somebody who literally believes in Q? Like, do they set up like some false channel for her to like give her orders? I mean, I don't know.
Right, exactly. We've contacted you. Congratulations on becoming senator. You want to vote exactly as Mitch McConnell tells you. Believe us. We've got a plan.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe they'll tell her the truth about who Q is.
Could be. All right, folks, I'm sorry. We're not going to have time for calls today. I apologize. We obviously went longer than I anticipated with that guy from Costco, but I feel like that was like a pretty good Friday guest. I mean, I don't know if I would call it guest, but a Friday break for everybody.
Break from reality.
Yes, a real break. Let's do 5 IMs here, and then we'll get out of here. Folks, we're taking Monday off, Memorial Day. We will be back Tuesday. We're going to try and do something for members, maybe put in some like if we can get access to the deep archives, we'll just drop something in the feed. Thames Darwin, Sam, I thought I'd just weigh in on the mustache. I think it goes along nicely with the new pre-show music since both are very reminiscent of 70s porn. I would elaborate, but I'm sure that the pizza I ordered is here. I don't know how to. Christo. Jamie is right. Fetch the bolt cutters is great. Sam, whatever happened to former semi-regular Friday guest Isabel Gillies? Do we actually miss her? Maybe not. Meanwhile, Cliff Schechter is now doing a regular stint on the dumb Steph Miller show. Speaking of which, did you know that Malcolm Nance lives in Hudson? He does a regular thing with Miller too. What can I say? Sometimes I hate listening to it. I sincerely cherish Majority Report more than ever, along with Lek, Peck, Const, Brooks Show. It was nice knowing you, Brendan. It's Eric Berg. Back me up here. Gilmore Girls fans here. Sam is Jewish Luke Danes. I don't know what that means. I'm just jumping around here.
I watched it in high school.
Bullprog. Costco Kevin sounds like Tim Pool's cousin. Obot.
He's way better than Pool.
Way
smart.
Yes, it's true, actually. It is true. With respect to Costco Kevin, Sam, I kind of wanted you to jump on his assessment that COVID-19 deaths are inflated by 25%, so only 71,000 people have died. Bottom line with this a-hole, he needs to add the Majority Report to his varied news sources. Right-wing populists are an odd strand. And the final IM of the day. Recently, Ms. Pac-Man, someone calling them says Ms. Monopoly has been garnering a lot of attention. But I'll have you know, I was the original girl boss in the game. I've been at this longer, so I don't understand why everyone is so worked up about a gaming product designed to appeal to a female customer base by slapping a female-focused label on an already existing product. It's not an SJW agenda. It's supply and demand. I think the issue, from what I can understand, is that Mr. Monopoly is supposed to be a bad guy. It's not about, it's okay to have a female villain, but I feel like they have made it about her being empowered rather than her doing bad by being a monopolist. But I need to dig into that more. Maybe we'll talk about that on Tuesday. All right, folks, have a great Memorial Day weekend. Stay safe. Check out the Antifada and check out Literary Hangover, TMBS, Nomiki Kant's show, and we will see you live on Tuesday.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bar. and